When did you see something definitely not meant for your eyes? I have the same first name as the CFO of my former employer. The CEO was not very technically savvy and emailed me confidential company documents more than once. And now you're working for their competitors, which mysteriously crushed them, right? It's a foolproof win, and the CEO is luckily a fool. When I was younger, I was at a friend's house, sleeping over playing video games on the Nintendo 64. We wanted a late-night snack and went downstairs to get some cookies, and we saw his mum with another man kissing. I wasn't sure if it got to another point. They were doing that in the lounge. My friend cried and said, "You're not my dad," and sadly, this was the last time I spoke to him because he had to move away with his father. I teach high school. While I was taking attendance at the beginning of a Zoom class a few months ago, one of the girls in the class was clearly video chatting with her boyfriend on the side, because she lifted up her shirt for him and flashed the whole class. That made for an awkward communication to her parents. What do you mean that made for an awkward communication with them? So how's she doing with the course? How's her performance? Well, she definitely knows how to interact during online sessions. Well, that's great. But when I was 7, I was playing hide-and-go-seek with my cousins at my grandma's house. I hid in the wicker laundry basket with the lid closed. I could see through the gaps in the wicker. My grandma walked in, sat down, and bombed that toilet. The noises, the smell, my grandma's hoo-ha. I won the game, but I lost my innocence. Nothing like I've read from the rest of you so far, but one time, right after turning 21, my dad took me to one of his friend's new bar, and we were drinking and having fun. I realized at one point I lost my dad, so I went looking for him. I find him in the back room. He's with one of my friends that works in the kitchen at the restaurant we all work at together, and my dad is instantly like, "Get out of here, don't look, just go." It took me a couple of years to realize they were doing lines off the pinball machine. I'd be relieved if they were just doing lines, to be honest. I think we were all expecting to meet your future stepdad. Hahaha, I would be so curious to know if this event was ever revisited in your future. I can't see the rest of your visits home being remotely the same otherwise. Then again, some people are remarkable at brushing things under the rug. This happened years ago while a freshman in college. I walked in on a black market plastic surgery, hanging out with a buddy from middle school. They were shady about only staying in his room and entering through his back door and being quiet. We were leaving and I turned down the wrong hall to his kitchen, and there was a doctor and assistants in scrubs. Tubes, machines, and plastic wrap everywhere. I was ushered out, screamed at, and told not to talk about it. It was either a lipo or tummy tuck. The doc only did those and Botox. It was in a low middle-class neighborhood, happened in Houston, Texas, while visiting our family and friends. Later learned the doctor got caught transporting substances and only did weight loss stuff and discount diagnosis for the poor. I went to pay off a ticket I got while driving with my headlights turned off. I walked into the courthouse office I was supposed to be in and looked through the glass to see the elected male sheriff giving the female magistrate a back and shoulder rub. They both went white when I knocked on the glass. The sheriff immediately stopped and walked to another room. The magistrate gave me the weirdest look and said, "I guess Christmas came early for you," and Stamp gave me the receipt of the voided ticket. Sometimes it pays to see something you're not supposed to see. My parents hooked the home camera up to the TV. I saw about 10 seconds of my mother reverse straddling my father. Didn't feel like finishing my drawing at all after that. I just walked out of the room and sighed with childhood hatred. Ah, childhood hatred. I feel that on a deep level. Grandpa's naughty movie stash. After he passed away in the hospital, I went straight to his room and purged it. You're a true bro. Bro move. Purging the stash, the delete my search history of the 20th century. I needed a USB drive at work one day and asked one of my coworkers if I could borrow one. It didn't work though. For some reason, files wouldn't transfer to it. I started looking around for clues and found an absolutely massive adult movie collection on there. The coworker was looking over my shoulder the whole time, and the only thing I could think of to say was, interesting. I found my mum's self-deletion plan. She had a small notepad that she kept in her dresser drawer. It had her planning on trying to make it look like an accident so my dad could collect the insurance money. She almost even went through with it one day, but from my understanding my brother unexpectedly came home early and she never went through with it. My mum's old friend came over. She said I looked just like her daughter and then spent about 10 minutes scrolling through her camera roll with me to find a picture of her. In the process, I saw like 2 or 3 eggplant pics. She was a bit embarrassed but just said, "I'm sure you've seen one of those before. Sorry." I assured her it was fine. Honestly, by the looks of the members, I was more concerned for her. I was living with my girlfriend and her parents. One day I ran down the stairs real quick to use the bathroom to see her parents getting down and dirty under the blanket on the couch. I just ran past them. I used the bathroom and came out to her dad waiting in the kitchen. Most awkward moment I've had when it comes to parents. I'll trade you. I barged into my parents' bedroom into seeing my mom going to town on my dad. Awkward as hell. Had to go to a family reunion that day, 45 minutes away. I was near them both all day. To this day, I'm not sure if they saw me. I was just cranking it before work one day in my room with my earphones on. I saw a movement in the corner of my eye over besides my door. It was my dad. He'd walked in to see me fully undressed and beating my hog and then nipped the F out. He gave me a lift to work that day in almost complete silence. My parents' bedroom tape. They put it at the end of one of our family home videos, for frick's sake. To my horror, I was showing my boyfriend at the time our home videos so he could see me as a baby. So the video cuts, goes to fuzzy grey for a minute, and then cuts straight to my 80s mum on the couch having fun with herself, and then I saw my dad pull out his meat while smiling at the camera before I could rush to turn the TV off. Forever burned into my brain. I saw one really weird message, and then got sucked into reading a whole huge text chain of my dad's really disgusting graphic text messages with his girlfriend, wherein he refers to her by the very same specific and highly personalized nickname that he's referred to me as since I was a child. It was like a train wreck. I couldn't look away. The messages had a really strong and very particularly family-oriented bedroom interest thing going as well, and I've never recovered. It seems he refers to her by that nickname whenever they're feeling in the mood. The nickname is a reference to a misprint on my soccer jersey from middle school. I haven't told anyone in my life about this because what do you even do about that? I've racked my brain a million times over to try and make myself even slightly less grossed out, but I only ever feel more upset. It seems most likely that they do some kind of role play wherein she role plays as me, while being with my dad. I have no idea why else using that nickname for their bedroom life would ever be a thing. So I'm traumatized and haven't looked at my dad the same way since, but sure as hell don't want to ask him about it. And to everyone trying to educate me about special bedroom interests, I'm plenty aware and no, it doesn't make me feel any better. To those upset about privacy, he asked me to set up his iPad and texts started flooding in. Once I started reading, my fears were confirmed. I read several of their conversations from over 2 years ago. I skimmed over a lot and read some things specifically. I was trying to rationalize that I was mistaken and that I wasn't seeing what I was seeing, but I couldn't look away. It felt like I had to keep reading to try and find some explanation or make it less real. In all honesty, I don't feel bad about violating his privacy given the circumstances. And to those saying, at least he never acted out any of that stuff on you, many of his other parenting actions that I haven't brought up before caused me suffering, removed opportunities, and led to mental health issues. But you're right, he never did that. What a frickin' hero. Living out in the country, when I was 10 years old, my parents went to the local video rental place and bought back a few VHS. They told me to pop in Planet of the Apes. I did, and whoever had it before didn't rewind it and it started mid-video. And all you heard was moaning, and all I saw was an eye full of men's and women's naughty bits. My parents freaked out and ran to turn off the TV. Apparently, the store doubled as an adult video store, and they'd accidentally grabbed Playmate of the Apes. Oh no. Oh no. That really is like something straight out of a sitcom, albeit one where you couldn't show what was on the screen while the child stared wide-eyed. I hope your parents were ultra-conservative Christians because that would make it even funnier. Who knows, they might have popped it in after you went to bed. My brother and I were very curious children. One day he pulled me into our spare bathroom, all excited because he'd found a huge surprise in the garbage can beside the toilet. Inside was a tortilla chip bag with a whole bunch of rolled-up things inside. We opened it thinking they were surprise toys. Nope, they were my mum's bloody pads. Huh, these chips already have salsa on them. Oh, you are the worst person in the world for writing that. Yesterday, my dog was barking while I was FaceTiming a friend. I went out to the gate and peeped through the handhole to see my next-door neighbor taking a leak on the land between our places. I saw his eggplant and then he was looking me in the eye and said, "It's okay, buddy," which is my dog's name. So yesterday I saw my next-door neighbor's eggplant and then held eye contact for a second. I was definitely not supposed to see my former boss railing the woman from the housekeeping agency. I was also not due the 35% raise that came my way the following month, but hey. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. A rather adult message from my dad, clearly meant for my mum. Also, unfortunately, my dad's sausage. Thankfully not in person, he just didn't delete his photos before giving 12-year-old me his old phone. Full story, when I was young, I'd say about 12 or 13, I got a text from what looked like an unknown number. There was no name popping up with it. It was clearly from a man. It said something along the lines of, "I'm just sitting here playing with my equipment, wondering if women play with theirs." Stuff like that. It was gross to young me. I thought nothing of it, kept it to myself because I didn't want to feel embarrassed showing somebody it. A couple of minutes later, I received a text from my mum saying that text my dad sent me was meant for her and to not tell anyone. If she'd just shut up, I wouldn't know that my dad accidentally messaged me instead of my mother. My dad never acknowledged to me that he had messed up, and it never got brought up again. When I was 7 or 8, I watched my 70-year-old neighbor have a heart attack and drop to the ground, face completely blue, with his eyes rolling into the back of his head. About a meter away from me. I had to run and get an adult to call an ambulance. I'm positive I saw him momentarily die, but the paramedics did manage to bring him back. No child should have to see that, it's messed up. I watched my grandpa having a heart attack and die in front of me, on Christmas Day, when I was 10, while we were opening presents. The one he didn't get to open was the one I got him. My ex's Reddit, where he was asking for relationship advice. Oh my god, that's my greatest fear. In elementary school, I saw my teacher peeing on a bucket in our class storage. Don't ask why she didn't use the bathroom. And no, she's not old. Borrowed my now ex-husband's laptop one evening while I was at home, and he was out with friends. Browser was open to his Gmail account, including an ongoing G-chat with his mistress. He must have been chatting with her from his phone, because their conversation continued on the screen as I looked on in horror. I scrolled back through the previous several weeks of their chat. He mentioned having a wife. He sent her downstairs pics. So many downstairs pics. He gushed over his feelings for her, but she mostly seemed to want to hit him up for money. Divorced now, thankfully. Good riddance to bad rubbish. When I was about 11, I found my mum's diaries and I read them. I found one from when she was pregnant with me and was seriously contemplating giving me up for adoption. Then one from several years later where she wondered if she made the right choice. I did just want to clarify a few things. We always had a strained relationship. I'd describe our relationship now as superficial. She reminds me of a teenager, and I've taken on the adult role. I think she has deep-seated control issues. I'm doing my best to break the cycle. If anyone has resources about overcoming this, I would welcome them. I'm a med student, and I had the privilege of taking practices in the rural area outside the city. One morning, the bus driver climbed inside the vehicle and someone came in and shot him 6 times. He died on the spot from blood loss. One bullet pierced his aorta. The killer looked right at me and seemed to contemplate getting rid of the witness. I was afraid of coming to my university for the rest of the year. Rest in peace, Mr. Bayron. You were the quickest and coolest bus driver I've ever met. When I was around 10 years old, my mum and I went to visit an aunt and uncle. My aunt told me to go call for my cousin to eat dinner. I opened the door and saw weapons lining the bed, bricks of white snow, and big burlap sacks full of green herb. I blurted out, "Your mum said come eat," and slammed the door shut. He scolded me for not knocking. It was no secret in our family what business they were in. My mum and her male friend doing the deed in our barn when I was 9 years old. After that, our parents divorced and never spoke again. I'm now 37. My wife's stepmom dated a guy who shared my name. She sent a chesty picture to the wrong contact. She was around 60 at the time. I deleted it and got a new phone and number. I created a perfect excuse for us to never speak of it, but I still haven't drunk enough to forget it. A few years ago, a cousin of a female friend got back from Afghanistan, recently discharged. We were playing Magic the Gathering via Skype. Mike said, "I'm going to go get another beer," and left the camera. A few minutes later he returned, pulled out a Glock, saluted, and ended things right there on camera. Chaos followed. He hurt his cousin on purpose as a last act. F you, Mike, but rest in peace. My mum did smack multiple times and passed out while I was under 7. Walked into the bathroom to see my elderly nana and her old lady bits. My sister having fun times with her partner. Bad times, 0 out of 10, would not recommend. My god, the ladies in your house have got to get their crap together. A weapon pulled on someone's head over a shoe that was left at another man's house. There is some important context missing here, because if the victim was borrowing shoes from their flatmate without permission and leaving them, I've absolutely seen flatmates get furious over much more trivial crap than that. My dad gave me his phone to order something because mine was out of battery. The first tab I saw on Google was, "How to tell your child a loved one is dying." My mum has been ill for years and I'd been in denial. This finally broke me. The CFO left paperwork on the printer that indicated the director-level employees were getting a $100K bonus and making $150K, 3 times the managers at my company. We were laying people off while these sacks of crap were getting paid big time. A text from my wife to someone else saying, "I can't wait to feel every inch of you deep inside me. Divorce is going okay." I once walked in on my dad singing Go-Go Power Rangers with a red Power Ranger suit on. He actually just got married to the girl in the group who dressed up as the pink Power Ranger. When applying for an internship, I accidentally got CC'd on an email from the CEO to her second-in-command asking if they could assign a certain person to be my supervisor even though she was on her way out. That person did in fact become my supervisor for the semester, and I was on my guard knowing that they didn't trust her. She left a few months after I did. When I was about 9 years old, I sat in my mum's car at a T-junction. A woman walked out onto the path with a pushchair and didn't see a cyclist coming. He swerved, flew off the bike and landed in the road just as a lorry drove by and ran straight over his head. My mum tried to shield my eyes, but it was too late. I remember the woman's screams and the blood on the road. We spent the whole night on the sofa under a duvet. I had nightmares for years. I should talk to my mum about that. We've never discussed it. In the 7th grade, I was walking out of the locker room. I heard the girls' locker room door open and looked over to see one of those girls walk out. We made normal eye contact, but in the corner of my eye I saw one of my classmates with her pants down. Needless to say, I worked hard to consciously not look that direction again. You know, I'm gonna go with my grandmother's vibrating marital aid. My wife sleeping clothed with another guy in our bed on New Year's Eve. To get a little more in depth, since there's so much interest, I was working a door shift at a bar that night. I got no texts throughout the evening from her saying Happy New Year, so when I got home I was walking down the stairs to our part of the house and I noticed the TV was on. So I'm like, what the frick? Is she still awake? And our bedroom light's on too. I walk over and see her and this guy passed out on the bed fully clothed, but all of the sheets had been removed. I yelled, "What the F?" and they both jolted up. All I remember saying is, "Get the F out of my house." "No, you're not putting your shoes on, get the F out," to the guy. I grabbed his backpack and whatever else he had and threw it out the front door into our driveway. My wife and I didn't really say much that night. She left 10 minutes later to stay at the hotel she worked at. Also, that guy worked there. Soon she moved into that same hotel after we broke up. We tried to work things out for a little bit, but the fact that she became an alcoholic and had always had a really mean bullying streak in the past was just enough. Fast forward, I've been in a super healthy relationship for 4 years, and she's been to rehab. Then she moved to a different state and became a crystal head and was arrested 5 times. In the 7th grade, we had co-ed physical education. When I sat down in the next class, I noticed the girl next to me was unbuttoning her shirt in class. She'd gotten the 2 side buttons out of order after PE and was fixing it. I saw her underclothes and a little bit of skin, but that was pretty exciting in the 7th grade, and she became a lot cuter and daring in my eyes. Nah, she married the guy who took her to high school prom. He's now a fundamentalist preacher, and she's probably 100 pounds heavier. I wonder what happened and if she thinks about it. Oh Lord, where do I start? My 72-year-old grandma getting out of the shower with no towel. I was 6 and it gave me nightmares. My mum's chest because she enjoys taking her brassiere off through her tank top armhole, but her chest doesn't always stay inside the torso of that same top. And my dad's eggplant when I was 7 because he showers with the curtain open like an absolute psychopath. And a surgeon with his hand in my stomach. When I was young, maybe 6 to 8, I was at my grandparents' house. I was talking with my grandma and said, "I wonder if there's a website named after me." She was just as curious as me, so we went to look it up. I typed in my name, then .com, and to both of our horrors, it was an adult website. "I saw Mrs. Crabapple and Principal Skinner in the closet making babies, and I saw one of the babies, and then the baby looked at me." My ex-boyfriend wanted to show me something online, but accidentally opened a tab for a site selling engagement rings. He was embarrassed, and I thought that it was sweet, even if it was a bit soon. I watched my father perform the helicopter at my mother through a mirror. meaning I witnessed his pasty white butt and wrinkly gremlin sausage. My ex cheating on me. I woke up early and saw her photo light up. I thought it was my phone. I didn't have my glasses on, and sure enough, bam, Bumble and Tinder were open and sending her notifications. Later, I said when she got up, "So, who's Mark?" Her face fell. I shouldn't have looked, but it made sense as to her secrecy.
Gentlemen, have you ever been the victim of a female creeper? Years and years back, I worked in a call center and I was friends with this girl. I didn't think anything of it until she propositioned me to do the deed with her. While I was flattered, I told her I was dating someone else and I wasn't going to cheat. Fast forward to a few days later, I go into work and get pulled into HR. Turns out she's now filed a report against me. She works in an area away from me, but they decided I'd needed an assigned seat beside my supervisor so that we would have no interaction, period. I was fine with that until her friends started sitting not too far from me, usually right in front of my field of view, and she had come over and sit and talk to them, antagonizing the situation. My boss saw what was going on and brought it up to HR that she was pushing the situation, but it was her words against mine or my boss's. A few more weeks of me being watched like a hawk go by, and I go into work only to find security and my boss waiting for me. Apparently, she felt that me looking in her general direction was an attack, so she filed another claim, this time saying I've been sending explicit messages and emails to her. This time, my boss fought for me, but I got sent home, walked out in front of the entire call center surrounded by security. I remember writing an email to HR and management that night, stating I'd had absolutely zero contact with her since the night she propositioned me, and offered my computer, a lie detector, anything to prove my innocence as long as they'd question her. Well, apparently they brought that to her, and she ended up confessing that she made the whole thing up, and that she did that to another employee and got them fired because they turned her down. For some reason, they let her keep her job. In fact, they gave her a fat severance package a few months later. I got stuck in the same punished seat and being threatened that if I told any coworker what happened, I'd be fired. I left a few weeks after the incident, but she had ruined my reputation. In that line of work, I couldn't find a job for anything for a while. A few years down the line, she spots me on a dating app and tried to hit me up. And yes, at the time I did try to sue. What was more screwed up is that no lawyer in town would even touch the suit. To this day, I still don't get it. My ex attacked me with scissors when I got home one night. She insisted that since I didn't answer her calls that I was cheating on her. I wasn't. The scissors went 3 inches into my gut. In a daze of confusion, I wrestled her to the floor in an attempt to stop her attack. I woke up 4 days later to learn her brother, who, while I was trying to subdue her, thought I was attacking her, and he hit me in the head with a cast iron skillet. 12 stitches and a slightly worse short-term memory later, I said to myself I'm never talking to her again. Don't stay with a hot girl when you know some screws are loose. That's probably a good lesson for both genders, to be honest. My God, how did nobody walk away from this one with criminal charges? You're probably lucky to be alive. I was seeing this girl for about 6 weeks. We went out one night and she said she had to work late the next day but wanted to come over afterwards. So, I gave her my apartment's spare key because why not, and told her to let herself in. I ended up falling asleep waiting for her. I woke up at like 12 a.m. and noticed there was a TV light on in the living room. I figured she was just watching something and maybe grabbing a snack before she came to bed. I got up to say hi, rounded the corner, and she was on my computer sifting through Facebook. I asked her what she was doing, and it was obvious she had no idea I was awake, and she freaked out. Needless to say, I told her to give me my key back and showed her the door. The funny thing is, if she asked, I would have let her look. I had nothing to hide. I would have thought it was weird, but everyone has their trust issues. But doing something like that behind my back was just not cool. To this day, I never leave my computer without hitting Win-L to lock it. I was doing the deed with a girl for the first time, and during it, she stopped and said, "I don't think I can do this. I'm pregnant." We went to sleep, and after that night, I continued hanging out with her for a while. She eventually got a boyfriend, and he messaged me on Facebook saying, "If I ever see you, I'm going to kick your butt. I know what you did to her. Don't respond to this message because I don't want her finding out I'm messaging you." I'm still kind of confused by the whole situation. My guess is that she already had that boyfriend and was cheating on him with you, got cold feet during it, said to stop the fun, went back to him, felt guilty, told him that you committed the unspeakable act on her. That's what it sounds like to me anyway. My 21st birthday, a co-worker took me out for drinks. His girlfriend came along. I used to work with her. Her boyfriend got me in his company after I got laid off. I chucked up so much in their bathroom toilet and they went to bed. I woke up several times on her living room couch with her hand up the back of my shirt, rubbing my neck. She had noticed that I was awake and then go back to bed, then come back a few minutes later. They broke up and he told me how much she wanted to do me. Oh, and they were both old enough to be my parents, by the way. I was at the grocery store with my wife, then my 2-year-old daughter, and my twin, then infant sons. My wife was pushing a double stroller with our daughter, and one of the boys was in it. I was carrying the other, who was calmly cuddled up on my shoulder. We're in the produce section when some random middle-aged woman that I've never seen before in my life spots us, makes a beeline towards me, stretches out her hands and tries to take my kid out of my arms. She didn't look at my wife or me, didn't say a word to either of us. She literally just tried to grab my son off me with no prompting or invitation whatsoever. I stepped away from her and shielded my kid while my wife chased her off. That wasn't the only weird, creepy, middle-aged or older woman to come out of the woodwork when the twins were still babies, but she was definitely the most frightening. When I was in middle school, a friend of mine was absolutely fascinated by the fact that I had hair down there. She didn't want to see my Johnson, just the majestic mane. This girl who works at my mum's work, they're both servers, always tells my mum she's going to marry me and thinks that I'm cute. It wasn't a big deal at first, but it got out of control for a little bit there, commenting heart eyes and inappropriate remarks on any post my mum made with me tagged in it. Finally, she followed me on Instagram and liked every one of my 700-something posts. And here comes the best, or worst, part. She starts messaging me through Instagram, and I didn't reply once. But she begins having a conversation with herself with me in my inbox, like asking questions and answering them for herself, and replying as if I said something, and saying things like, "I heard from your mum that you're going through a rough time," and then she opens up to me about her past, which is a long and inappropriate thing to send someone who's never replied to you. This is among many other creepy things she's done to me. She doesn't bother me anymore though, just the occasional like on a picture. I was at the pub with some friends and one of them left a scarf at a now-packed table. She was feeling socially awkward and asked me to go get it. I thought, no big deal, I'll get it and show her there's nothing to be worried about. I asked a woman in her early 20s, I was 18 by the way, if she could pass me the scarf. This lady got up, walked over to me, wrapped it around my neck and proceeded to cut off my air supply with it, really going for it. Her hands were shaking from the force she was putting into pulling the two ends of the scarf. The pub was packed, but everyone just kind of stood there, not sure exactly what was happening, myself included. After what felt like ages, two guys pulled her back to her table. They were looking at me worried, shaking their heads with faces that said, "We have no idea, dude." Everyone around the table clearly knew her, and they were shocked by her behavior. I can't help but think about how differently this would have played out if the genders were reversed. If a man did that to a woman in a crowded pub, he would be thrown out and the police would be called. I came back to my dorm to find a girl who I didn't know waiting for me. I'd apparently served her food once at the campus food place I worked at. She figured out who I was and where I lived without even my name. I'm not sure how I managed to shoo her out peacefully, but I did. Wow, okay, the narrator felt sure that this kind of creep was for sure the kind of thing that only male creepers had the gall to do. But there you go, I have no idea what I'd do about that. 3rd week of May 1993. I broke up with my girlfriend, but she still had my choir letter jacket. We were in high school, but going to different high schools. Last day of school, I walked from my high school to her house to get my letter jacket. I got to her house and I see she's not home, so I sat towards the other end of the street, waiting for her. Hours later, she finally comes home, so I start walking towards her house. She goes inside, I wait a bit, knock on the door and say, "Melinda, I really just want my choir letter jacket and I'll leave you alone." 30 minutes go by and finally she comes out with it. I'm ready to walk home, but no, she offers me a ride home, to which I say, "Okay, but I have no interest in talking." I get home and she leaves. Fast forward to the fall of '93. I'm working at JCPenney's in their optical area. close for the night, come out and notice some guy parked next to my car. I blow it off. I leave, and after a few miles I notice this guy is following me. Okay, time to drive to the police station. I stop at a gas station that had a payphone, and I call the non-emergency phone number for the police, and I told them the situation. I drive to the police station, and as I get closer, the officer stops me and the car following me gets barricaded in by 2 cop cars. I found out this person was a retired Texas sheriff that had been hired by my ex, whose father is also a retired Texas sheriff, to keep tabs on me. He gets brought inside and I talk him into calling my ex and telling her he got arrested for following me and she had to come bail him out. She shows up with her dad and crap hits the fan. I ended up putting a restraining order on the ex-sheriff along with her entire family. 5 years later, she sent me an invitation to her wedding, and I mailed it back with no postage, written on the invitation, F off. When I picked up my 90-day chip in an AA meeting, this old lady seductively kissed my neck and told me congratulations. While not interested, I still sprang a stiff one. A lady who sucked my blood from an open scab without informing me she was about to do so. She told me she considered herself a vampire. We'd just started dating. I showed her a pic of my son. She then asked what I was going to do with him once we had kids. Well, at least she did you the courtesy of filtering herself out rather than making you figure this out way down the line. A girl borrowed my hoodie in 9th grade and apparently flicked the old bean on it and gave it back to me. She was a really disturbing girl, but I didn't find out until that happened. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. The girl I'd been dating for just a couple of weeks invited me to her mum's house for dinner. Halfway through dinner, I finally noticed that they'd printed out pictures of me from MySpace, this was back when MySpace was normal, and then they'd put them in frames, randomly interspersed them with other family pictures throughout the house. They were laughing hysterically at my reaction, and I told them very plainly and very seriously that if it was a joke, it was hilarious. But if it wasn't, and they never actually answered whether it was a joke or not, we didn't last much longer after that. You know, the opposite of this is known as mantelpiecing. You take a framed photo of yourself to another person's house and sneakily leave it displayed in a prominent place, or optionally switch a picture that they already have for one of yourself. Ah, weird staring girl. When I was in high school, I noticed a girl just staring at me while I was eating lunch with my friends in the cafeteria. I didn't really think much of it that day. The next day, I see the same girl just staring at me again. This time, I think maybe she likes me or a friend sitting next to me. The girl isn't ugly or anything, just a nice normal girl. This keeps happening like almost every day for 2 weeks or so. She even eats food just staring at me. Sometimes I see her standing in the hall staring while I'm waiting for a class to start. Even when I went to the basement with another group of friends to have lunch, she is there. So after a hallway death stare incident, I get creeped out and tell my friends in a class about this. They don't believe me, or some make jokes and laugh. So one day at lunch, I whisper to my friends that this girl's been staring at me for 2 weeks. It's creeping me out. They look at her and tell me that they've noticed it too, but they didn't say anything. I'm hoping it's just a weird crush she has, so I just end up going up to her and saying, "Hi." She answered by staring for 15 seconds completely silently. I say, "Why do you keep staring at me every day?" She continues staring for 30 seconds or so, and I tell her, "Please stop doing that," and I walk away. The next day, nope, there she is. Thank God she moved to a different school after a few weeks. At least she didn't follow me to my home, I think. Joke's on you, she's under your bed while you're listening to this audio right now. Okay, calm down, I'm joking. Or am I? Yes. Or am I? I was a limo driver for a number of years. One time, this very drunk girl climbed through the divider into the front seat. I was on a fairly busy stretch of highway with nowhere to immediately pull off, and there was a lot going on the road, so I really couldn't do anything but try to reason with her. I was seriously afraid she'd bump me or the wheel or do something that would cause an accident. After she worms her way up, she starts rubbing my thigh and telling me that I should leave my girlfriend for her, All the while, her friends in the back were egging her on and thinking it was funny as heck. I pushed her hand off my upper thigh and Johnson region several times before I finally managed to get to an exit where I could stop. It took me threatening to cancel the trip for her to get in the back of the car. It's not the only time something like this has happened, but it's the only time a girl risked all of our lives to make it happen. Usually, there's one reasonable person in the group to keep the crazies in check. Oh boy, when I was younger, 22 I think, I signed up to work an event at the job I was at. I had to work a table with an activity and help these Girl Scouts craft something. So these two 13-year-old girls came up and they started making crafts. Then they asked me for my phone number and I told them no. They asked my name then and I told them no again. They constantly asked for both of these things and I constantly refused. A female coworker came up and started chatting with me. The girls then asked her for my info and she gave it away. I was angry, and thinking back, I'm still angry. One of them started texting me immediately. I told her to stop and she laughed and walked away. I blocked her number. The next day I got a Facebook friend request from her and blocked that too. Then I started getting messages from her. The same coworker had given out my work email address and my MySpace account. She was very persistent in getting me to talk to her, and I hated it. Finally, I messaged her troop leader and told her about what was going on, and she just said she'd take care of it, and I never heard from her again. I think not just her age, but how persistent she was creeped me out more than anything. I was real drunk and passed out on my friend's couch. His friend was also there. I woke up to find her on top of me and pouring whiskey down my throat. It's not like I needed any more, I was destroyed. Apparently, we did do the deed that night. Can't say for certain whether I was conscious for it. A girl licked my knee at a club. Walking from school in a big gaggle, I overhear a girl about 20 feet down at full volume say, "I could do the deed with that guy anytime I want." I mean, she could have, but it's still kinda creepy. In the middle of lifting, I was interrupted by a woman who'd told me I'd make a great stepdad. I have no idea who she was, but I did nope out quite fast. I've had women grab me down there, also my butt, and rub themselves on me. And no, they're never hot. One of them told me point blank, "I've seen your wife. You've seen my husband. I think we can both do better, don't you? Come on, we'd make such a great pair." A girl I dated made a voodoo doll out of her used sanitary products and my hair shavings from my electric razor that she said she'd use on me if we ever broke up. She buried it inside a lunchbox at the beach and drew a map to find it. She's now a married mother of 2. I was at a music festival in an American flag onesie last year and a lot of people were wanting to take pictures with me. I was having a good time meeting a bunch of new people. And this group of older ladies, between 40s and 50s, came up to me and wanted a picture. When I got in their group, one kneeled down. When they took the picture, the one who'd knelt grabbed my downstairs. I moved and yelled, "Hey!" She said shut up and grabbed it again and said, "You're a guy. Enjoy this." I ended up leaving pretty quickly at that point. Searched my apartment, phone, camera, computer, and everything else I owned the first time I left her alone in my place because she wanted to know more about me. She ended up creating a version of my personality she interpreted through my things. She showed up at my apartment block back in college. She knocked on the door, and I didn't answer. It was late, I was tired, and I didn't invite her over. She kept knocking louder and louder. The police arrived and asked her to leave. She left and showed back up about 5 minutes later. She knocked some more and finally gave up. The next morning, I found a human turd on my doormat. I mean, maybe she was just desperate for the toilet? She actually lived in the same apartment complex. I think it was an anger turd. Oof. Well, at least you likely didn't have to put up with her after that. That's a pretty clear sign of a lack of continuing interest on their part. Although, now I think about it, there are definitely weird guys who'd keep trying after doing that, so maybe it's not outside the realm of possibility. I was at work when a customer came in. She was overweight and looked pretty sloppy. Hair was a mess, wearing pajamas, a mismatched pair of shoes. She came up to me and asked how she looked because she was about to start driving for Uber and wanted to know if she looked presentable. I just said, sure, and tried walking away, but she wouldn't let me leave. I don't know how we ended up here, but she started talking about how her skin can't handle most soaps and had to use some alternative to it. Can't remember what that was. She shoved her arm in my face, telling me to smell it, and to see that it didn't smell bad. I politely declined, but she did it again and made it clear she wasn't moving until I smelled her arm. I finally did, said it was fine, and walked away as fast as I could. It was definitely one of the most uncomfortable moments I've had with someone. A girl grabbed my butt and jammed a digit up there while I was in Mexico. I was just watching the Day of the Dead dances and blammo, an index in my butt. Turned around and saw a little Mexican woman slip through the crowd. My girl was like, "Why did you jump?" And I explained that I'd just got a finger up there. Back in 1992, I was dating this girl from Chile. She really liked ABBA. Before we'd do the deed, she'd make me sing the song Take a Chance on Me while dancing undressed. If I refused to do it, there'd be no fun bedroom times. Being 18 years old and really only able to think about one thing, I'd sing the song and dance the dance. I hate disco. I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and my girlfriend followed me and sat outside the door to wait for me, and I didn't notice. Opening up my bathroom door to see a humanoid figure sitting in the dark by my feet at 3 in the morning scared the ever-loving crap out of me. I've dated an artist a few years back. I got a notification on Instagram that she tagged me in one of her paintings, so I went to go check it out. Then I see it's a painting of her cutting off my eggplant while she's wearing a bunny suit. I then check out her Instagram story, and it's a photo of the painting in progress, and she's actually wearing a bunny suit while painting it. What happened when spicy pictures came up in an important presentation? I was a university professor, by which I mean I was a grad student filling the part as cheap labor. There was a time when QuickTime on the Mac would open the last video you were watching. I don't know if this was a feature or what, or if it's still an option, I have no clue. But I really didn't realize it somehow. I think I'd always just double-clicked my new video file and it opened. Well, I was sharing my screen giving a lecture and wanted to show a video clip. I clicked the QuickTime icon at the bottom, the window opens, and it's paused on a clip of my girlfriend at the time in a pretty compromising position. As soon as I saw it, I ripped the power plug from my computer, but it's a laptop. As soon as I realized it wasn't going to work, I pulled the VGA adapter thing out of the side. I said, "Oh, sorry, technical problems," and got a lot of laughs. I closed that effing thing down and launched the right video. Then plugged everything back in and went on like it never happened. After the class, one of the kids said, "You're hilarious." Thankfully, they're adults, and when they're that age, no one ever reported it or said anything as far as I know. My boss called our team in for a morning review. He was a bit like David Brent or Michael Scott, so at the end of the meeting he liked to show motivational videos. This one time he goes on YouTube, and as he starts typing, his laptop freezes with only the letter A in the search bar. He was looking for the Any Given Sunday speech. As I'm sure you know, when you first start typing, YouTube will make suggestions or show previous searches. So on the screen, the first result under the A was Asian lesbian massage. Everybody saw, nobody said a word. Before his laptop had unfrozen, he closed it up and said the video could wait until next time. It was never mentioned around him again, but the rest of us laughed about it for weeks. Why would you go searching for a YouTube video instead of just saving the link? That's just asking for bad things to happen. Too damn right. I don't think there's anything too compromising in any of my searches. Mostly it's these videos to see how you lot are responding to them. But even the most innocent person has got to have things they've written out of idle curiosity or something that their partner has asked them to look at, or that a friend wrote in to gross them out. It's not worth the risk. Save a link, folks. I was running a training class offshore. We wrapped for a break and I decided to check my personal email. Didn't think to turn off the projector because everyone was exiting the room and just didn't think about it. I was expecting an email from my mum maybe. I was really just going to quick scan the headers to make sure all of my bill payments had processed. Any sales? And I see an email from my bestie. Header says, "We miss you, here's your Christmas card." This should be sweet, so I click. And for a brief second, all of my friends were on the projector, undressed, posing in front of a Christmas tree, wearing Santa hats. I'm sure that a few of the trainees saw, but nobody said anything.
Let me give some context that is important for understanding the why. I was interning at a small US ad agency in the early days of the internet. The boss/principal wanted me to do some internet research on something mundane. US automobile market shares, I think. He was going to be out of the office for a couple of hours, and I could use his desktop computer to do it, as interns back then had no computer to call their own. This is pre-Google, when adult content companies would manipulate keywords to show up in your Yahoo results, no matter what. So I searched for automobile market share or whatever, and I got a list of links. The whole first page of the list is adult sites, and my curiosity gets the better of me. I click on a few, just trying to understand what they could possibly have to do with automobile market share, poking around the metadata, and yes, of course, I'm just a bit titillated, as adult content on the internet was a new concept to me at the time. However, I'm in someone important's office with the door open, so I quickly shut it down without any self-service and continue the struggle to complete the task at hand, leaving the browser window open with the data I found to satisfy his question. My boss gets back and quickly calls me into his office, asking basically, "What's the meaning of this?" Well, unbeknownst to me, pop-unders had just been invented, so I unknowingly left a dozen small browser windows full of adult ads sitting open under the main window with the research in it. That was a seriously awkward conversation, trying to explain that yes, I did click on some things, but honestly I wasn't being too inappropriate and I was just more baffled and confused. Even worse, the data I'd found was pretty much useless, so he essentially thought that the intern had just been whacking the mule in his office for the last 2 hours instead of doing the requested task. I was in Iraq. Part of my job was to publish this report that was sent out to basically every unit there. My coworkers and I had got into the habit of messing with each other on our shifts and leaving random things like male members or turds on the screen for the next shift to find. One of my coworkers changed the title page of this report to say, "F this report," and I didn't catch the change until after it was already sent out to high-ranking officers throughout Iraq. Almost instantly I was bombarded by equal comments of, "What the frick?" and "That's hilarious." Thankfully, our commander fell into the "that's hilarious" category, so we didn't catch too much crap for it. But I'm sure that ominous feeling I had took at least a few years off my life. When I was a kid, I went to my friend's bar mitzvah. Probably about 150 or so people attending. Halfway through the service, there's a time where everyone prays quietly to themselves, and at this point in the service, it's damn near silent in the room except for some quiet muttering. At that point, the rabbi decided to go to the bathroom. He also didn't turn off the lavalier mic on his lapel, and we heard him peeing, tooting, and saying, "Oh, well, god damn," and yawning. At first, no one knew what the sound was, and then everyone figured it out at once. By the time we all knew what we were listening to, it was pretty much over. I did feel awful for him when he walked out. I'm sure someone said something at some point, but I never saw it. I used to work at a Fortune 100 back when the internet was a hot new thing. I was asked to do a demo of it to the top brass. Now, at the time, one of the cool things you could do was a tour of the White House. whitehouse.gov. So during my presentation, I typed in whitehouse.com, and it was an adult site. I survived. The funny thing is, the COO came up and asked, "Hey, if I wanted to visit the internet, what city is it in?" And I looked straight up at him and said, "It's not in any one place, it's everywhere all the time. It's kind of like a mind or a brain that's everywhere, all the time, you just need to plug into it." He looked at me and said, "Well, my God, the hippies won." I used to work for a point-of-sales systems company. My coworkers and I would mess each other's demo accounts, put in very inappropriate Easter eggs, among other things, which is okay because we weren't in customer-facing positions. All of a sudden, I get asked by my boss to go on site to a very important customer to train them and demo the system. I go there, it's quite a formal setting, the customer sets me up with a projector, there's about 7 people in this meeting. I start showing everything. Everything is fine until I show a lesser-known function of the system. It makes a picture pop up of a food item or product or whatever. My favorite jerk coworker had changed all of these pictures to some very unorthodox material. So I projected this picture of 2 guys going to town on each other with the didgeridoo. My immediate reaction was just to start laughing. Luckily, the other people started laughing too, and I said, "Well, as you can see, you can add any picture you want to this function, so if you're selling didgeridoos, Back at the office, everyone thought it was hilarious, and luckily the customer thought so too and is still with our company. Wow, kind of amazing that there's seemingly a whole company that has survived being staffed entirely by overgrown school kids. I mean, don't get me wrong, I find myself laughing at it, but it's potentially problematic today, and if you have to do it, maybe target a friend and not someone who'll cost your company thousands of dollars if it lands wrong and you lose their business. Oh boy, I was in that meeting once, and I've been dying to tell this story. Once upon a time, we had a client that built agriculture machinery. I'll call them John Stag. Their logo is a green and yellow silhouette of a leaping stag. Notice that I'm being very careful not to say the actual name. I don't know if they still do social media monitoring, but back then they'd listen for mentions of their brands, and stuff on the internet would get pulled. A lot. Anyway, when we do a presentation, we slap the client's logo on the cover page, and usually we get the logo from Google Image Search. We've occasionally used the wrong logo by mistake when two companies have the same name. It's a bit embarrassing, but no biggie. This time, my manager, a 50-year-old woman, took it upon herself to do the final edition, including finding the logo for the cover. What happened, if I recall correctly, is that she saw a pretty popular Instagram post that featured said logo, so she decided to screenshot and crop that. I didn't see the finished presentation beforehand. We go to the meeting. She opens the presentation in front of a couple of John Stag execs, and the logo is not their actual logo, but rather a parody, in which there are two leaping stags, one of which has a silhouette member and is mounting the other. If you Google John Stag parody logo, it's one of the top results. Me and the others were speechless. My manager didn't see the problem. What? There's just two stags instead of one. It's funny. And nobody dared point out that, lady, those stags are doing the deed. Even when she finally figured it out, she tried to brush it off as, it's good your logo is so popular and recognizable that people make parodies. And the execs were, to put it lightly, not amused. So very much not amused. That company is no longer one of our clients. In the 60s, my great-grandfather used to show slideshows of the family vacations. He knew vacation slideshows were super boring, so he'd randomly slip in a slide with a pin-up girl on it. It wasn't a presentation, but a funny story anyways. In college, we were working laptops in a lab, and I left mine unlocked when I went to a washroom. When I came back, the room was silent because everyone was working, until I get an MSN message and my computer screamed at the top volume, "Hey, everyone! I'm looking at adult gay material over here." My usually stoic teacher just calmly said, "Mr. Mackey, can you please do that on your own time?" You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. I was presenting to our biggest client. That morning, I was browsing the internet and came across a picture with the title, "Screw That Crap," and it was a cartoon visual of two turds doing the deed. I somehow accidentally saved it to my browser and it was labeled screwthatcrap.jpg. While I was presenting, the client said, "What's that?" and pointed to the Screw That Crap JPEG, and I embarrassingly tried to explain that I'd accidentally saved a pic my friend sent to me, but it set the tone for the rest of the presentation, I can tell you. Mine wasn't that naughty, but it was pretty funny. In high school once, when my friends and I had a group presentation, we decided to find our teacher's Facebook. We found some pictures of him really badly edited into a background where the Titanic was. We slid that into the presentation. The whole class laughed and ended up in the principal's office. Back when I was doing Tier 1 help desk, I was scheduled to remote into a doctor's computer to troubleshoot something minor. At the scheduled time, I called the doctor's office and the front desk admin picked up. She told me, "Oh, he's in with a patient right now, but you can go ahead and remote into his computer and do your thing." I remoted into the computer and my screen was suddenly filled with some of the most vivid, gay, adult film content I've ever seen. We had to present a mobile app of our choice for university and I chose DeviantArt. Okay, Thanks to the filter, nothing was shown, but I had to present the different browsing mechanics, so when I ordered by new, I was sweating, praying for having no adult or disturbing art uploaded at this moment. Please, nothing unsafe for work. Oh, thank God, nothing's there. There were some suggestive things, but nothing disturbing or unusual. But this could have been the case. Also, since it was an English presentation and it was in France, I also had to explain why deviant art is named like that. Hopefully, I knew that. Well, on a bigger scale, instead of a small presentation, it was a big all-hands with a big company. There were 3 offices in the US and 2 international. We were all on Slack, and this one guy was on their mobile. Said guy didn't know his camera was on and proceeds to walk into a bathroom stall. Sits down, mounts his phone on the toilet paper dispenser, and watches the presentation. Luckily or unluckily, there were a lot of people on, so his thumbnail kind of got lost. But I and quite a few other people did notice him. We slacked him. The panic on his face and him fumbling for the phone were priceless. I'm going to say that there was a non-zero chance that someone watching was into that, so it counts against our title. Also, this is hilarious. Would have only been better if there was sound on as well as he let it rage in the bathroom. But life is rarely as beautiful as all that. Not me, and not technically an important presentation, but we had an art homework project once, just to research an artist. Most people usually didn't do art homework, but the teacher said that failure to hand it in would result in detention. This one guy copied and pasted a random website and emailed it to her, and included in what he copied was a link to some sketchy adult site. She clicked it in class. Everyone laughed, and that one guy got detention. Similar, but not as grand. My husband and I do this thing where we change the background or lock his screen on his phone to things to either gross out or make the other person laugh. It was my turn, and I set the background picture to some fan art from Tumblr of Rick from Rick and Morty with his eggplant out. But my husband didn't check his phone for ages and just forgot about it. His mum came over, I showed her something on the phone, and I pressed the button to go back to the home screen, but I didn't really look at it, I just had it in my hand, still talking. My husband took it off me, and I just thought he needed to check something. But after she left, he was jokingly like, "Yeah, don't appreciate you waving Rick's rooster in my mum's face." And for a second I was confused, and then he showed me the phone, and I realized what I'd done. I laughed, but I was like, oh crap. She obviously never said anything, but she definitely saw. This was back in freshman year of high school for me. I was seeing my biological father at the time, and my 1 year younger stepbrother, who was also visiting, decided to use my school laptop for extracurricular activities. I'd been building a website for the web design class I was taking, and my brother just opened to a new tab, did the deed, minimized Chrome, and put the laptop to sleep. Come second period, I plugged my laptop into the class projector, woke it up, and turned Chrome on to find 2 male little people being pounded in the butt by some very butch women with rough-looking toys. There was a week of time where the school recommended I get disciplined outside of the school environment for that. Nobody believed it was my stepbrother. He got away with it. New work PC. I signed into Chrome with a personal account and forgot to turn off the Sync Everything setting, which also bought search history. Kicked off the video conference and was asked to navigate to whatever URL. There wasn't a single letter I could type into the address or search bar that didn't autocomplete into some disgusting filth. Best I could do was type their URL as fast as I could and hope that nobody noticed. Not my computer, but one of my jerk friends kept sending me videos that started off normal but ended with a really loud moan. I accidentally played one right before class with max volume. My chemistry professor was not impressed, to say the least. In high school, this guy saved his presentation through his phone, and when he took his USB and plugged it into the teacher's computer, there were dozens of undressed pics from the girls at the school showed on the smartboard. Even the teacher saw it. A few of the girls in the class were on the board. My teacher was frozen, and the girls were mad. I used to work for a tech startup company that had a presentation with some top execs of a Fortune 500 company. This was their biggest potential customer by far. It was so important that the president of the tech company insisted on doing the presentation despite minimal involvement in prior presentations. He was very excited to demonstrate a multimedia aspect of the product by browsing a live website. The site that he picked whitehouse.com, which was an adult site at the time, instead of whitehouse.gov. He was horrified when our product was quickly swallowed by a huge splooge-covered hoo-ha and a billion very clearly unsafe pop-up ads. This would have been an embarrassing but understandable mistake, but he quickly started mashing the keyboard in panic. I'm still not quite sure what buttons he hit, but he managed to completely crash the demo and mess up the keyboard, which ruined the remainder of the presentation. We didn't make that sale. Go figure. And we're 2 for 2 on the whole whitehouse.com issue. The narrator did do his, due diligence and check whitehouse.com, and can assure all of our viewers that it seems to have been bought out by an election betting site. And right now, in mid-October 2024, the content is only slightly less concerning. This happened at my second high school back in 2007. The juniors and seniors took a business class starting from junior year, and the capstone project is called The Pitch, where a group makes up a fake business plan and presents it to real judges. When I was a senior, I was doing my school's required community service hours and offered to help man the check-in table for the judges, guests, and students. It was quiet for a few hours while the presentations were going on, but at one point the teacher stormed out of the room completely steamed. When I asked around, apparently one group left on one of their slides, "Thank you for coming, you condescending buttholes." I don't know what the punishment was, but it's surely a good lesson in why you always check your work. In 8th grade, we had a project to create a commercial for a product of our choice. Keep in mind, laptops weren't common for students, so we all had our commercials on phones or iPods and would plug it into the computer, which projected onto the wall. One kid plugged his phone in, and the teacher went to downloads instead of the gallery. The poor kid just knew what was happening and yelled, "No!" But it was too late, and he put his head down. The file took us straight to, P-Hub, and even the teacher couldn't stop laughing at him. One of the funniest moments in middle school. Many years ago, I was IT support, got called into a meeting room because some website that was being presented just wouldn't load properly. Web page was being projected to the entire room. I diagnosed as it was needing Java reinstalled and promptly went to www.jav.com, which is not Java and is in fact something very unsafe for work. Yeah, that second day is pretty important. The entire room was looking at the welcome page to a Japanese specialist interest adult site. In college, I took a chemistry class for an elective. My college required you to have at least one science credit to graduate, you see. It was actually really fun, and I learned a lot. One of the requirements was to give 3 presentations, and during my second one, I made a sweet PowerPoint on the topic of calcium. I'd emailed it to myself because I couldn't find my flash drive at 4 a.m. when I finished the presentation. I get to class, set up the projector, and open my email on the computer. I'm talking to the professor and not really paying attention to what I'm doing, and I clicked on a spam email that just popped at the screen to a video advertisement of a girl getting destroyed by 2 huge guys with her massive chest swinging towards the camera. There was no sound, thank God, but the professor and the 19 or so students who were at class just burst out laughing. I used to work at Hastings Entertainment Store in the book department. One time I was asked by an elderly woman to look up a book, and I wasn't able to find it in my system. I pulled my phone out to do a quick Google search and opened my web browser, forgetting I'd just closed it on the middle of a video the night before. As soon as the browser opens, this lady was greeted to a sound she'd likely not heard in years. The sweet, sweet slapping and groaning of leather. She learned a new use for the word daddy that day. I closed the phone as quickly as possible and just retreated to the break room. Builders, did someone ever ask you to make a secret lair for them? I used to do some construction work on schools during the summer. The principal wanted, in his closet, a door to slide up where he could keep a safe for special school records and a mini fridge. Although it wasn't very big or even that cool, it was the coolest work I was ever involved with in that summer. Plus, who wouldn't want a mini fridge hidden in their wall? Electrician here. I've done a few. The coolest was a secret passageway and attached room in a very nice house. It was hidden by a movable bookshelf on both ends. The guy said he didn't have a specific reason for building it, he just always thought it would be cool to have a secret passageway in the house. The other one that stands out was an underground survival bunker accessed through a hidden door in the back of a garage. It had an additional exit by means of an underground tunnel that led almost 100 feet to the bordering forest. The strangest thing about it was that it was a survival bunker that he had us wire with outlets and lights, despite there not being any kind of backup or off-the-grid power. Makes me think that he actually had an alternative purpose for his shelter. Step 1. Build this hidden bunker. Step 2. Sell the house without telling the buyers. Step 3. Live in the bunker, stealing their electricity and small amounts of cash and food. I built a Narnia closet for someone. Their daughter had one request for the new house. She had a built-in armoire, white and modern-looking with nice shelving units on the right side and a bigger opening on the left. However, when you pushed the back of the left closet side, it opened up into an actual closet that was about 5 by 10 feet on the inside and not too shabby at all. It was a pretty fun build, albeit somewhat challenging. Friend of the family works as a custom cabinet maker. Most of his jobs involve him making secret compartments for rich clients. Mainly desks with a secret place that can hide guns, keys, ledgers, and swords. Oddly enough, a lot of people request that. But also stuff in bookshelves, picture frames, among others. He also gets your typical movable bookshelves. Never built one, but I did find one in a house that I was doing some plumbing work in once. This was an expensive condo, and they had a secret office that had a one-way secret mirror looking into the guest shower. Creepy as hell, man. Oh, come on, people. The narrator came here for escapism and to see what other grown-up children with adult incomes built, not for a reminder of how weird and creepy the actual real adults are. Yes, we worked on what was supposedly going to be a hidden, secret walk-in safe in the basement. This room was heavily reinforced. Normally, walls around doors are framed using wood. This door frame was solid reinforced concrete. The room was a square attached to the outside of the basement, so all 4 walls were concrete. We poured concrete above it, so the ceiling was concrete. Very unusual. We also poured the floor. So, it was 6 sides made of concrete. Since it was attached to the outside, there was no sign that it existed from the inside. No ventilation, no wiring from what I saw. I never saw the finished product, but the owner was keeping it a secret and wouldn't explain much about it. So another contractor finished it off. Carpenter. I built a grow room for a guy's medical Mary J in Vermont. An alarm was wired directly to the state police barracks in the event of a burglary. Oh man, yep, all the time. People that can afford it pay a lot for panic rooms and hidden armories. Swinging bookcases, doors and wall paneling, you name it. People with that much money usually have something to protect. I had a secret passageway in an old house of mine. From the upstairs bedroom, there was an attic walkway that wraps around the house and has a ladder to a closet in the kitchen. This was done so you can easily fix any of the pipes. But it could also be used as a secret passageway. Definitely used it as a kid to sneak out of the house. But screw that passageway. That thing was always filled with crazy insects. There's a war there that no one ever sees. My parents' house has a, quote, secret room that's behind a bookshelf in their master bedroom. The reason it's put in quotations is because this hidden room is wall-to-wall open window. So basically, you could hide from someone inside of the house, but if they happen to walk around outside, you'd appear to be in a normal room. My dad is a doctor and does a lot of construction at home on his free time. This one time, he was moving a wall, making one room smaller and another bigger. He was putting an entire wall bookshelf kind of thing in the smaller room, and just to mess with future homeowners, he snatched one of those plastic skeletons from his job and hid it in the space between the bookshelf and the wall. I expect headlines sometime in the future. I convinced my brother to add a secret door from one closet to the other closet between his daughter's rooms when we were building his house. I don't know if this fits the criteria, but I know a guy who had no use for a room, so he removed the door and put a 4th wall up. I dare someone to explain this so it doesn't sound like a dumb idea. I think land taxes based on the number of usable or accessible bathrooms in a dwelling? Step 1. Build a quick fake wall. Step 2. Get taxes reassessed. Step 3. Profit. Step 4. Tear down the wall again. I was a draftsman for a while. Two super wealthy Chinese parents were building all three of their children houses on their massive property. I was asked to design the ironing room for the eldest daughter. She genuinely liked doing ironing and laundry. I ended up designing this massive room with bay windows overlooking the lake and with all sorts of storage compartments and a variety of ironing stations. She loved it, and I got a healthy bonus. I'm still confused to this day. I just moved into a house that was built in the 70s. The previous owners custom built it, and the architect was the man's old frat buddy. Custom stuff everywhere, with a trash chute straight from the kitchen into the garage wheelie bin. When we first looked at the house, we really loved it, but there was no office space that my husband could use for his music stuff. It was the only disappointing thing about the house, but since everything else was so perfect, we went ahead and put in the offer. When we were doing another walkthrough with our parents, we showed them the walk-up attic, which is pretty cool too. When I turned around to leave, I noticed a wall of insulation that looked different. If you push the insulation to one side, a doorknob appears, and behind it is the secret office. Coolest house ever. I worked for a very wealthy man, and he had hidden rooms and sliding bookcases. When he would need comm equipment in these areas, we'd gain access. Some were built around wiring channels, and we'd find them because the dimensions of the room didn't fit. We'd have to tell his assistant and let her know that we knew, so she could let him know we knew and needed to get access. He had a hidden pistol range, a few safe rooms, and a pretty epic armory tucked away into the 3 properties I had access to. All of the work was top-notch, and unless you knew they were there, it was very difficult to find them. Not a construction worker, but in my old house, one of the bedrooms had a small opening to the crawl space that was made to look like a large mouse hole. I was a custom interior carpenter, and I did 2. One was a bookcase that opened up into a large storage area. The other was a hidden room behind their wine cellar. We installed a custom wine rack on a piano hinge with a latch in the space behind one of the bottles. In the room, they installed a safe and weapon safe. All the electronics for the house lived down there, as well as a panel that opened up into the main living room, in case you wanted to fire at an intruder from the safe room. Booze, weapons, and safety all in one place. I guess what I'm saying is that I know where I'm going when the zombies come. What are these people's lives that they're preparing for this sort of thing? If you have a certain level of wealth, are home invasions just guaranteed or something? Or is it just rich person paranoia? Probably rich person paranoia. My wife and I had a secret soundproof dungeon-type room built adjacent to our bedroom. The reason for the room is that we have various devices in there that are impractical to disassemble and put away when we have friends over, or the day we have kids and still want to enjoy our fun discreetly. We had some devices installed when we built the room, such as a large metal cage and other restraining devices. The people who built the room probably asked us 100 times if we were sure we didn't plan to abduct people. The architect nearly dropped the project when I jokingly asked him to make sure there'd be an electric outlet to plug a chainsaw in. I currently live in an ex-grow-op house, and I'm wondering what some signs of hidden rooms would be. The substance-dealing dude that lived here before was a shifty man, and there could be a hidden room in here somewhere. I'm a pool builder, and we were asked to build a hidden pool room for the equipment and other random things, and we had stonemasons turn the whole underneath of the house into a secret room and blended the door into the wall. To open the door, you needed to push a stone, and the door opened automatically. I don't work in construction, but I've always loved building things, and when I was a junior in high school, I decided to remodel the basement I was living in. I intended on building a secret room behind a bookcase because I thought they were cool. It would have been the size of a small closet. However, I got more caught up with more of the actual building process. My basement flooded sometimes, so I tried to figure out a way to make it less of a problem. I decided to elevate the floor slightly by laying a bunch of treated planks across to raise the floor an inch. That took more time than I thought, so by the time I got to my secret room, I blocked the area off but never made the entrance. A few years later, we got some professionals to redo the basement, and they told me they were impressed by my solution for the floors, but didn't say a word when they noticed I'd blocked off an area that could have easily been used. Well, the issue with this question is that the best secret room builders were killed by their employers. I was interning with an advertising agency while at uni, and we went to an audio engineer's place, and in his room was a big piece of circular glass with a few dough lights on behind it. Against the wall was some wines he kept, as the temperature was perfect. Turned out it was the end of a huge tunnel that went far into the Adelaide Hills, as in underground into the hill. It was pretty mind-blowing, I thought. Firefighters have long warned that secret rooms are actually real hazards in emergencies. There was a massive fire in Edinburgh's Old Town a decade or so ago. The buildings were several hundred years old and contained old vaults, rooms, and corridors that had long been forgotten. It allowed the fire to quickly become an inferno. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. My house has 2 secret rooms, and there are photos of it in construction, almost finished. It's off to the side of my movie room behind one of 2 black velvet curtains. The main secret room is a huge 20-foot by 9-foot thing, large enough for 5 or more people to escape tornadoes. Ceilings and walls are about 18-inch thick concrete. Also, the ceiling has a steel roof with 10 inches of concrete poured on top of it. All wired, vent and return, internet wired too. Nothing wireless works in the room. We sometimes call it the black hole because the bars on your phone just disappear when you enter. The room is finished now and decorated like the rest of the house. It gives it a less creepy vibe. I once built a whole level of a room that was half the size of the others. It was a half room. I don't know why they wanted a half room, but it wasn't accessible with stairs, and the only way to get there was by stopping the elevator. In the 1970s, a group of Edinburgh students living in a flat in Niddry Street in the city's old town knocked on a wall and heard a hollow sound. Curious and probably drunk, they knocked a hole through it where they exposed an old labyrinth of corridors and rooms underneath North Bridge, nearly half a mile in length. People had lived and died in these rooms underneath the city's bridge. There had been bars and brothels and doss houses for the poor. People in the Victorian times had closed it off, and subsequent generations had forgotten where the entrances were. I've always wanted a secret room that was accessible from underneath a wall next to a swimming pool. So you have your swimming pool, and on one side of it is seemingly a wall that goes right to the edge. If you live in the pool, you can swim through a small hole that's near the bottom of it, leading to the secret room. The secret room only has a very small bit of pool that you emerge from, and there are no other entrances or exits, nor windows. Kind of not a secret. In my old flat, I had a room that was locked with a big Yale lock. Whenever we'd have people around, they'd always want to know what was in there, but I never let on. It was my hobby room, so to speak. I used to fix up vintage guitar amps in there, and the lock was there simply because I couldn't trust my drunk friends not to go in there and mess with my stuff. Amps have lethal voltages even when they haven't been used in a while. But I liked the mystique and intrigue whenever people were around. The women were the worst, and their hypotheses were always centered around a secret, dodgy alternative bedroom life. I attended a private boarding school when I was younger. The school itself was more than 200 years old, and the castle it was built around was much older. Upon exploring, me and a few other friends found an entrance to a system of tunnels that ran beneath the school. The tunnels were used as maintenance tunnels for the old heating system that was once run from a gas boiler system. Originally, we thought that was why they were built. We began trying to map out the tunnels and used to spend hours underneath the school during study time and night, roaming around with measuring tape, drawing it to scale. We never completed the map due to the system's enormity. As we got further and further into the tunnels, we learned that these were much older than just the gas boiler. A new cement tunnel network seemed to extend about 1 kilometer in radius. Past 1 kilometer, the tunnels got older and more dangerous. We found they extended all the way out to a pavilion in our school. These passages were also in cement, but were clearly much older. Most of my time as a 14-year-old was spent roaming around them. It gave us passages into locked rooms, the castle's banned grounds, to the forest. We decorated a lot of the walls down there in shoe polish and stolen art paints. We'd even smoked down there a mere few feet below the headmaster's office. Yeah, this billionaire wanted me to install some sort of cave for his bats. I built a dishwasher look-alike that was actually an adult toy compartment. Who am I kidding? I had a dishwasher full of naughty things. I can imagine that this particular disguise may have caused comment for at least one dinner party. Oh, here, let me help you tidy up. No, it's no problem, honestly. Oh my god! Glorious! Goes to show you should never use the dishwasher that's inexplicably in the bedroom. Well, all I'm going to say is that it looks like all of these rooms aren't secrets anymore. My childhood home was built sideways on a hill with a garage lowered about 5 feet from the rest of the house on the downhill side. We had a huge living room that came right up against the edge of the garage, the wall of which formed a low 3-foot wall, above which we had bay windows and a set of steps leading to a deck over the roof of the garage. When I was about 14 or so, I was visiting a friend's house across the street and saw a picture of his grandparents on the wall. It was taken in their front yard in front of their mini gazebo, facing up the street, and off to the side I could see my house. Except, not quite. There was no balcony deck, no huge windows overlooking the street from the living room, and a 2-car garage with a peaked roof abutting the living room. But we only had a 1-car garage. The other half of the garage had somehow disappeared into the rest of the house. I grabbed my friend and we ran back to the house. Right next to the 1-car garage was a brick retaining wall, faced by the stairs up to our front door. That brick wall was where the second garage had been. But clearly, there was no room. It was only about 5 feet high and the living room extended into that space. Still, we bet that it hadn't been filled in. And I vaguely remembered from years ago as a child that there was some sort of storage space into the garage. So we went exploring, and behind some shelves in the back, we found a loose piece of plywood sitting in a groove. We slid it sideways and saw that, yes, the concrete garage floor continued off into the darkness. So we grabbed some flashlights, squeezed in, and found a tiny little disappointing space containing a bunch of wiring panels, circuit breakers, pipes, boxes of junk parts, and spare insulation rolls. It was as long as the other garage was wide, but only about 4 feet wide with a concrete wall on the side facing the front of the house, and short, a bit less than 5 feet. The living room floor was clearly the roof of this cropped-off part of the garage. Our initial hopes of turning it into a fort of some kind were hopeless. It was barely wide enough to sit side by side. We were about to leave, but panning my flashlight over the junk again, I spotted, at the far end of the wall, a door jamb. I scanned the flashlight up to the roof and saw that it led right up to the roof and living room floor, where it had been roughly cut off. So we started moving boxes. Inside the door jamb was a plywood plug held in place by slide bolts. Now, we knew we'd hit the goldmine. We shoved and stacked and pushed the boxes all of the way until we could finally get over and remove the plug. We pulled it out, pushed it to the side, and ducking down, walked into a fully furnished room. Fully, that is, except 5 feet up from the floor, where the walls had been chainsawed off and a roof and floor put in. The remodeling had obviously been done over and around an existing room. There was spilled concrete at the edges of the carpet next to the concrete wall, and some sawdust, but otherwise it was clean and neat. There were even electrical outlets on the 3 finished walls. I snuck out to my room and brought back a lamp. We plugged it into the interior wall near the door, and nothing. We then tried the interior wall facing the garage, and success! The plug was a little bit wiggly and kept falling out, but the outlet in the far back, the front of the house behind what was now a brick retaining wall, worked perfectly. So now we had a room, secret just to ourselves. Still, it was a little weird that it was fully finished, but we eventually figured out that there had probably been 2 stages of remodeling. Someone had turned half the garage into a den first, and then later someone had extended the living room over and through it. But with the lamp on, we realized that things were a little more complicated than that. A rough ladder of 2x4s led up to the ceiling in the corner, and what had looked like finished walls along the garage side were actually floor-to-ceiling cabinets built to fit the space, not chainsawed-off interior walls like in the sidewall. We found canned goods, an old electric heater, light bulbs, which we later found fitted into 2 sockets, one at each end of the room, but only one of which worked, an electric hot plate, toaster, utensils, old plates and cups, and most interestingly to us, an assortment of liquor and old adult magazines. We, paused our investigation for a bit after finding those. Everything down there was a good 20 years or so old, but we'd only moved into the place when I was 6 or so. So we checked out the ladder. It led to a trapdoor of some kind, but we couldn't move it at all. Later, I checked the living room and saw that at some point, the new floor must have been put in over the top. So, though someone at some point had used it as a lair, den, panic room, bomb shelter, who knows? All we knew is that at some point, someone knowingly or not sealed off the living room entrance and left us a treasure trove. So we started using it as our secret fort. We snuck in some old beanbag chairs, the only thing that we could squeeze behind the garage shelves, some sleeping bags, pillows, salvaged couch cushions, comics, and probably tons of other toys and knickknacks that I've forgotten. The secret lasted until the next school year. Though sworn to secrecy, my friend couldn't help but brag that we had a secret fort, and one day brought over 2 other kids to show it to. I relented because one of the kids was cool and yeah, I kind of wanted to show off. Neither of those 2 kids could keep a secret though, and one day when a group of kids were over, my mum came home early and heard a commotion of loud children, coming not from upstairs at the other end of the house, but from below her feet. She found the place almost immediately, but swore she had known nothing about it. She kicked us out and closed it off, and told me it was off limits until she could talk to my dad about it. In short, when I was 14, I found a hidden partial room in my house, and my dad let me use it as my private fort. When I was 16, I lost my virginity in it, and it was the first place I also got drunk.
What is the worst permanent life decision you've ever made? Trusting a sketchy dentist because he was in the neighborhood and took Medicaid. For every filling he gave us, he drilled out entirely too much healthy tooth and gave us each 1 root canal. In each of our mouths, the tooth that had root canal treatment completely broke off to the gum, and all the teeth that he'd filled ended up breaking. He's since been put out of business and been charged with malpractice. Playing in a band without earplugs. Tinnitus is the worst. I decided to try and be a parkour expert. My crappy coordination didn't kill my motivation until one evening I was at a local park and decided to do a massive wall jump that failed epically. I fell on top of a jagged surface and tore my intestines. Due to this injury, I now have a permanent colostomy at the ripe age of 16. Mistakes, man. They suck. Stretching my ears. One of them is stuck with a 10mm hole that I have to plug in permanently, or else it looks like a cat's puckered butt. A tattoo of my wife's name. She's got mine too. Married for 6 years at the time, blissfully in love. We lasted another 8. Now I just want to chop my arm off. You know, you could chop off hers too, and then swap arms. Problem solved. Missing the party that Bill Gates threw when I was in college before Microsoft took off because I took too much green herb. Oh my god. Rolling the dice and doing the deed unprotected. I have a large birthmark on one side of my face, and when I was about 8 years old, when my father was still alive and we had a decent income, my mother informed me of a simple procedure and asked if I wanted to have said birthmark removed. I said no because it gives me character. As it turns out, that character is a socially awkward hermit who, and I've had a couple of women tell me this, looks like an unspeakable act offender. Well, I'm sorry people said that to you. I don't know what you look like, but I've seen people with large birthmarks on their faces who are still attractive. Chloe Radcliffe springs to mind. That said, making important cosmetic decisions at the age of 8 is a huge ask. Not sure if there was a right way to go about that. Going to med school because it was, in my mind, the next logical step. I didn't take it seriously, and now I'm in $300K of debt, waiting tables, horribly overeducated and underskilled and licensed for everything, living with my parents and trying to figure out what's next. I bought a ring for my downstairs finger to do the deed with my ex. The first and only time I used it, I set the ring size way too small and basically choked my member from a lack of circulating blood. We finished, but the next morning it was shriveled, like half of its normal flaccid size, and it looked like it was covered in really tiny veins everywhere. We went to the ER, and it turns out that I caused ischemia in parts of my Johnson, burst a few blood vessels, and basically destroyed my ability to get rigid for the rest of my life. I'm only in my 20s. This happened 3 years ago, and my ex broke up with me shortly afterwards. I can still get a tiny bit more rigid, maybe 20% of what it was previously if I use a little blue pill. It gets engorged somewhat, but doesn't get up like previously. Dysfunction down there causes a lot of stress, anxiety, worry, no matter what age you are. The worst part was I couldn't really confide in anybody what was the source of my stress. My parents especially could see something was wrong whenever I visited, but I just told them that I was upset because my girlfriend broke up with me. I tried to climb the highest mountain in my country. My father took me and my brother there with some friends. The problem is that I have sickle cell anemia, and due to the low oxygen I just couldn't go further, but I did anyway. Bad idea. My spleen and appendix almost burst, and I had to wait for 24 hours in agonizing pain before a helicopter rescued my butt. Had to get my spleen and appendix removed. Now I can't do any hard exercise ever. In short, tried to climb the highest mountain in my country, lost 2 organs. Marrying a Scottish exotic dancer. I use air quotes because I've spoken to at least 3 different lawyers about addressing the need for a divorce and have easily received 3 different explanations as to whether I am or not actually married. She was here illegally. In a nutshell, we actually did look into getting her citizenship and status to pending, and then eventually a legal green card and all. She just couldn't be bothered with it in the end, I think. It's not like I was making enough money to pay the lawyer to begin the divorce process. I grew up poor, as in family had no car or indoor plumbing for many years, and lived mostly off potatoes and eggs we raised in the backyard. As a teen, I had 1 pair of shoes and 2 pairs of blue jeans to last an entire school year, which were pretty much worn out and patched after a few months. I envied my friends who were better off, and I became a workaholic that held down 3 jobs at the time for most of my 20s and 30s. I bought my first apartment building at age 24, while I myself was living in a ratty 1972 mobile home on rented ground in a sheep farm pasture. I went to college part-time for years as time permitted, paying cash. I'm not wealthy, but I've done okay for myself and have a nice house and live comfortably enough, and finally got married at age 50. If I ever had to do it over again, I would have worked less and partied more when I was younger and made more time for a social life. I regret never taking enough time to search for and find the right one when I was young enough to have kids and a family, instead of settling for comfortable relationships with the few women over the years who showed any interest in me, and raising their kids instead. I would have spent more time traveling the world, getting a better education, explored art more, gone to concerts, drank more beer, owned more animals, and sat around more bonfires. Maybe learned to play an instrument, learned to fly, owned more race cars, volunteered at more charities, gone to more beaches, planted more gardens, and formed more deep friendships with a large, diverse, eclectic group of people. These things are just more important than having money in the bank or a nice house. I think I can drift on this gravel road. I think I can make a hard turn on this road in the rain on a motorcycle. Both of these people regretted their decisions, in case you were wondering. Not wearing my retainer. My dad called me and told me he was dying. He was in hospital with cancer. I asked the nurse if he was, and she said no. Anyway, I tried to get to see him, but my brother had my car, and I couldn't get anyone to take me. And he died late that night, alone. If I knew, obviously I would have bussed, walked, hitchhiked, or crawled to that hospital, but I didn't. And 14 years later, I still can't forgive myself, and it haunts me every day. I decided to break up a fight. It was a success at first, but then some guy came from behind and tackled me. I was stronger than him and gave a few good ones, but he was obviously a trained fighter. He put my leg in some kind of jiu-jitsu hold and tore my ACL. I was an uninsured student at the time. 10 years later, I still can't play any sports and I have to be extremely cautious in the snow. The fight I tried to break up turned into a brawl between 2 groups of people. The school ended up getting involved and kicked 3 people out, including the guy who ruined my knee. Suing did cross my mind, but I wasn't supposed to be at the bar and I was on a full-ride scholarship. I was more worried about my scholarship being taken away. Plus, I was 19. What the frick did I know? This happened in 2001. It doesn't hurt anymore except for during the winter months when it throbs from time to time. Heck, sometimes I forget which knee is injured. I have to be extremely careful when walking on an icy sidewalk. If I slipped and had to regain my balance, my knee would fail me. I plan on upgrading my insurance coverage one of these days to get it fixed. Oof, no good deed goes unpunished, I guess. Sucks for you. You're a special kind of psychopath if you come up to a guy clearly just trying to stop a fight and pull the most damaging long-term injury you can on them. My God. I didn't take brushing or flossing seriously, and now a bunch of my teeth are in pretty bad shape.
I stopped wearing my retainer a few months ago, and I'm slowly watching my future dental bills tell me to go F myself. Smoking. I've done irreversible damage to my body, for no reason other than to get a nicotine fix for a problem I created for myself. God, I was stupid. I quit 2 years ago and I still think I want to smoke on a weekly basis, but I know better. Volunteering to go to war. I didn't even have to go and could have finished my contract out and never gone. I feel like it cost me my sanity and happiness most of the time. Definitely took more out of me than I ever expected it to. Decided to not socialize when I was younger. Didn't go to a 4-year college, and I work full-time. I have no life. It was a very gradual shift over the course of a year from, if I eat a little less and exercise more, to, if I eat absolutely nothing and exercise for 4 to 5 hours a day, that did it to me. The entire time I felt like I was making a conscious, independent choice as I slipped further and further into a mental illness that kills 20% of its sufferers. Now I have a serious heart problem, osteopenia, and people still don't think I'm sick, just in control. I'd have less health problems if I were overweight. My doctors had to let me go once I was a quote healthy weight, but that didn't help my mental health at all. Every day I struggle with putting the food I need to live into my body. I wouldn't wish this hell on anybody. Lying through my teeth to my high school counselor and saying, "I'm okay," when she asked me how I was doing. 4 years of severe depression and many failed college classes later, so many doors in life are now closed to me forever. If you're a young adult reading this, please get the help you need if you need it, today. Okay, update. For those of you wondering, I've recently been accepted to a PhD program in a competitive field studying what I love. You're right, doors never do close forever, they're just harder to open. Tattoos. I love them, but if I could go back, I wouldn't get them. It's a career choice. Fortunately, it's nothing a long-sleeve shirt doesn't cover, but still. I just wish it was more hidden. I have ones on my chest and side that I don't have to worry about at all. Just one on my forearm and one on my bicep. I could have picked a better place for those. To not be there more for my grandparents before they passed. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. When I was 20 or so, I was poor. My family was poor, and things got really bad that year. I decided I could make some money flipping stolen items. I was an idiot and got busted. I got a felony for it and 7 years of probation. Now I'm 28, can't get a fricking job anywhere, and life is nearly pointless at this juncture. I've been on the good side of the law since all of that went down, and with each month that passes where I wonder if I'll eat tomorrow or have a roof over my head, I think more and more, I could solve this by getting back into crime. It's a vicious cycle, and I'd rather not be alive than go through all of it again. I have no clue how I'll ever get my fricking life back on track. In short, don't commit crimes when you're desperate. You'll do something stupid and mess your life up forever. And don't ever think that anyone will get it or give two screws about you, because they won't. The world will condemn you, crap on you, and then treat you like a worthless, lazy C-word because no one will fricking hire you. Maybe not 100% permanent, but I'm a recent college grad with a degree in film. And while film is my passion, I hate myself every day for being stupid enough to major in film. Buying that World of Warcraft subscription and game in 2004. I got clean in 2009 and never looked back. It was some of the most memorable times I've ever had in a game, but I kept prioritizing it over real life. I think it's helped out a lot of people a lot, but other people regret it with a passion. I think everyone gets nostalgic over it though. Breaking up with that awesome girl in college because I wasn't ready to settle down. I've been trying to find a girl that awesome ever since, or even remotely close. The narrator will say that although it's entirely possible she was and still is an awesome person, rose-tinted nostalgia glasses are probably doing a lot for your image of her. Rest assured that there are people who are as great as her out there. You just have to meet them. Screwing around in high school and not going to college. I'm not saying college is necessary for everyone, but I think I would be in a much better place overall if I had gone. I have a decent corporate job that I am very good at. I've been employed by the same company for 10 years.
My life isn't horrible, but the ceiling is getting so low that I have to crouch in my cubicle. I've seen enough advice animal memes on the front page to know that the high school kids are out for summer. If you're reading this, please take my genuine advice. Just tough it out, do well in school, and get a scholarship. Your schoolwork should really be your main focus in life. It'll suck. You might not get to do the things that your friends are doing. I know this. I chose to have fun, and now I don't have much fun at all anymore. I have close friends that are now fresh new lawyers, paramedics on their way to becoming doctors, a Wall Street broker, and even an astrophysicist. I'm already 10 years into a middling career that can't ever really make me happy. I'm not saying that my life is over and this is it for me. I can go to college in my spare time. My employer will even help pay for it. I'm pretty good at taking pictures. I can see a spark there. Maybe something will come of that as well. What I'm saying is, I would have much preferred, in retrospect, if I'd just buckled down, worked hard, and gone to college right after high school when learning was still fresh, and I still remembered a bit about high-level algebra. The ability to learn at the rate you do as a teen does go away. Use it while you have it. Now I'll have to relearn a lot to do schoolwork around a full-time job. In short, San Dimas High School football rules. And I guess I should add to my advice, your mileage may vary. I have a friend that's a welder that did all of his learning as an apprentice. He too makes enough money that he can go and do pretty much whatever he wants to do. At my base salary, after taxes and insurance, the car payment, rent and food, I have to save up for months to be able to swing an in-state vacation. I guess my main point is get the work done while you're really young so that when you're older you don't have to worry about that. And you can do that fun stuff as much as you'd like. I'm not saying wait until you retire to do anything fun, it's just so that you can make enough money to have fun when you're not working. Having a snake as a best friend. My snake, Xavier, looks a lot like me. My buddy Steve used to say he couldn't have picked which one was which out of a lineup, which he ended up having to do several times after the burglaries. But that's all been settled outside of court, and I'm happy to say that the wounds have healed nicely. Anyway, this one time a man on the street came up to me and started cooing while making wild motions with his fists. Immediately concerned, I shook him and asked him what the matter was. "You," he said, his eyeballs bulging and his Adam's apple becoming dislodged. "You did the deed with my wife." Now, I've done the deed with a lot of people's wives, my neighbors, Ronald Reagan's, and yours, but I was pretty sure this man wasn't one of them. For one thing, he was Irish, and the Irish tend to marry Hungarians, and I wouldn't touch a Hungarian for all the money in Hungary, which is about $4.68. For another, he was grotesquely overweight, so I figured his wife couldn't be much to look at either. This might be an unfair judgment, but I've never considered myself a fair individual. In fact, I've never even been to a fair because I don't like Ferris wheels, and I think cotton candy tastes like gonads. "I'll fight you right here," the man said. "Right now." He raised his bony fists and leered at me. At this point, I realized what must have happened. Xavier has been a bit of a man about town recently. He was going through a messy divorce, which for snakes tends to involve repeated chucking up and 400% increase in his doing the deed drive, and it seemed likely that it had been he, and not me, who had slept with this man's wife. "Oh," I said, "you're looking for my snake." The next thing I remember, I was waking up in the East Omaha General Custer Memorial Hospital in excruciating pain. My doctor told me that I'd been out for several years, but since the man hit me with such force, I was traveling near the speed of light and I perceived it to only be a few hours, in accordance with Einstein's theory of general relativity. I'd also fractured 34 ribs and needed a mechanical Johnson to replace my old flesh-based one. This saddened me, but I'm delighted to say the wounds have healed up nicely and I am almost a functional human being again. Xavier apologized to me in his own coy way, and our friendship hasn't suffered too much as a result, except for the 2 weeks I used him as a Kleenex brand paper tissue. Not breaking up with my ex-wife while we were in college. One night we were doing laundry and we were right on the verge of breaking up. We almost did it, but I backed down. We ended up getting married and had a couple of kids. My life is screwed because of her now 15 years down the road. But I do have 2 wonderful kids from the relationship that wouldn't have existed if we'd broken up that one night. It's funny how much of my life seems to pivot around that one night and that one decision. Without making the decision, I wouldn't have my kids, but my life wouldn't be screwed. I think about that night so much. I turned down my dream job because of location.
Then I ended up getting another job elsewhere that was the right location and a high salary, and those were the worst 5 years of my life. Rocking a backwards, upside-down visor in middle school. I mean, you just sound like a rad dude to me. What are you talking about? I'm gonna rock that look out to the store right now. I wonder if those kids who always laugh at me will be sitting outside again. I wonder what they're laughing at. Oh well. Discovering the internet. Nothing will ever get done again. Choosing a degree for the money, not for what I'm interested in. Now I'm stuck with a major that I don't even like. I don't need to wear protection, I'll just pull out, said 19-year-old me. Despite MTV's efforts to glamorize teenage parents, it really sucks. It's hard trying to raise someone when you yourself don't even have direction in your life. You're already poor, kids are expensive, and you alienate yourself from your friends because no 19 to 21-year-old really wants to hang out with you and your kid on a Friday night. You drop out of school because you can't handle working 40 hours a week and being a parent or trying to be a full-time student or even a part-time student. All this being said, I do love my son to death, and he's probably the best thing that happened to me. Without him, I truly believe I would have drunk or partied myself into a really bad place. Took me a lot longer to get back on my feet, but 12 years later, I'm finally back in school and I'm really happy with my life. Letting my tattooist boyfriend do his name on my face has to be one of the worst permanent life decisions anyone's ever made, unless I somehow get the money to magically remove this. Buying a smartphone. Huge frickin' distraction. True dad, I'm writing this answer on my smartphone from work. Crawling out of my mother. If I'd known then what I know of the world today, I would have stayed inside. Mine is inaction. I should have played an extra sport in high school, and I should have created a local non-profit organization for kids with Tourette's, which I have and therefore relate to. If I'd done both of these, I know I could have gotten a full ride to my dream college, which would then have allowed for my 2 brothers and sister to for sure go to college without my parents going so far into debt. Then my parents wouldn't have been so stressed, which would have made home life easier, and my siblings would have had a much easier time in their lives. My inaction took a huge toll on my family. I still regret it to this day, and I wish I could have taken the opportunity to not be lazy, to play an extra sport, go the extra mile, not just sit at home, relax, and expect it all to come to me without lifting a finger. Inaction is just as permanent as action. PhD. There's no going back once you have that level of loan debt. Every teenager should be made to read through these testimonies in their entirety. I've just finished. In short, don't major in arts, don't do substances, go to college, don't get a tattoo, go to the dentist, talk to your counselor, go to college, don't marry an idiot, don't be a stupid freaking kid, go to college. What's a hobby that has a surprising dark side to it? Disney pin collectors. I like pins and I'll buy them when I'm traveling for souvenirs. Apparently, at Disney properties, pin trading is a big thing. And it's also pricey. What at Disney isn't. And there were a bunch that you could only get from random packs. There'd be a set of like 7 to 8 different pins, but you wouldn't know which one you were getting. And they had sets that were well over $100. I'd stopped by one of the kiosks at Disneyland because I wanted a few Star Wars pins, and I saw people trading pins with the employees. I was curious about it, so I googled a bit and was amazed by the black and grey market of pin trading. People would buy knockoffs and then go to the parks and trade them to staff or other patrons, even kids, for legit pins. Or they'd find someone with a rare or valuable pin that didn't know its worth, and they'd try to rip them off. I guess with obsession comes darkness. Beekeeping. There are keepers who weaponized severe illnesses against others' hives and many cases of hive theft every year. I'm not sure if it's still a thing, but when I played Magic the Gathering a number of years ago, I heard some real horror stories about how competitive Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh players were. One story involved a guy at Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments holding a weapon under the table to scare an opponent into losing. Wasn't there one Yu-Gi-Oh card that got banned in competitions because it was making people show up smelling like absolute crap? Yeah, that card had a line on it about the players shaking hands, and if you shook hands, you'd get a beneficial effect. So people would choose to not bathe or just deliberately smell terrible so that their opponents, while they might want that beneficial effect, would resist because they don't want to touch the other player's hand or be near them. It kinda reminds me that Super Smash Bros. Tournaments, when held in person, actually have to put in rules about competitors having to bathe, since some of them were really unhygienic, nasty fools. And it was such a common problem that they had to make a tournament rule about it for some tournaments that people ran. As a fellow nerd, I do hate to call out my card-playing brethren, but I do have to say that when I go to my local hobby store to buy things that I don't need and can't afford, there have been some rank-smelling Magic the Gathering tournaments there. So I completely buy high-level tournaments in nerdy things having bathing rules. Stamp collecting. Some places won't mint stamps of a living person, so major collectors are just waiting for certain people to die so they can complete sets or have special commemorative sets made. Find a serious stamp collector who's also an avid Beatles fan, and you'll see what I mean. What does the Venn diagram between philatelist Beatles fans and people who buy into the Paul is dead theory look like? I bet that's an interesting, super freaking obscure argument that's happened somewhere on the internet before. Macrophotography has a whole ethical debate about euthanizing insects to be photographed. Wine collecting. There's rampant forgery. If you haven't watched Sour Grapes on Netflix, I highly recommend that you do. Genealogy. You can uncover some family secrets that you really might never want to know. Some cousin marriages, some affairs. Once I found a birth certificate for a doorstep baby. I hope that baby and the mother found their peace in life. My paternal grandparents were cousins. Grandfather was a letter carrier who got caught stealing mail. This was in the 1910s, so mailing cash was common, and he did federal time. His father, my great-grandfather, couldn't find work after his Civil War service and became a boarding house thief who was caught stealing clothing and stuff from other people's rooms. He was apprehended with a list of over 50 boarding houses in Philadelphia among his possessions. His wife, my great-grandmother, ran off with his brother's son. But I can report my father and his 5 siblings were all honorable people. Egg collecting. Some people go nuts and end up stealing eggs from nests of endangered birds. Some go to jail. Ornithology, also known as birdwatching. I've been in shouting matches with other ornithologists over territory and high-frequency spots. They'll also use fake bird calls to scare birds away. One fellow left a bloody feather for me in a spot that I frequent. I've prepared a sharpened quill for the next encounter. Wild ginseng hunting in rural Appalachia. The mountain gold roots are highly valuable and illegal harvesting is a big business. There's lots of shady and armed characters traipsing around the woods to find the stuff. It's the same with succulent collectors, by which I mean poachers, in Southern California and orchid hunters in the Everglades National Park. Also, didn't someone steal the last remaining specimen of a certain plant, I think a water lily, from Kew Gardens a few years ago? I remember a BBC News interview with one of Kew's lead horticulturalists, and you could hear that he was absolutely gutted. I suspect people with no experience assume that hobby store-style group activities like tabletop miniature games, Pokemon, are just silly fun for nerds and kids. But the amount of drama, anger, and bullcrap going on in those places as personalities clash is off the charts. I've heard stories ranging from stalking to attacks to death threats, and that's just the normal side of how crazy it gets. Drum corps. Some corps will literally push you past your breaking point. Some people end up getting stress fractures or worse and are told to push through them. My favorite is knitting and crochet. Do you make a baby blanket out of wool and risk the child having an allergic reaction, or do you make it out of synthetic fibers and have the blanket melt onto the child should a fire happen? Either choice means you're a demon and hate all children, according to some enthusiasts on the internet. Plant collecting. People poach them from nature, steal them from nurseries, conservatories, and homes, file fake claims against the sellers to get their money back, paint plants to look like a different species, flip plants without proper quarantine and acclimation, and also sell infected plants, be it bugs, rot, mosaic virus, among other things. Honestly, it's shocking how many awful things can go wrong with collecting plants. Quilting. Gossip around people with a fabric habit can be quite mean. Manhole cover enthusiasts. I found them while working on a school project, and there are some sophisticated thieves in that community. Doll collecting. Fakes are a big business and people are crazy. The fake American Girl dolls always make me laugh. They can never get the lip color right, and they always end up looking like adult movie stars. Absolutely. You know it's wild when a doll can get cancelled. Thank goodness dolls aren't sentient because the scrutiny and judgment they get from fans is hardcore. And I say that as a huge fan who also thinks Mattel has turned Barbie into a cheap piece of crap in the past 10 years. Don't even get me started. Improv is full of predatory folk. I mean, just about any performing art is full of predators. Computer security. You start out with some naive idea about maybe fixing a bug you found in some software, and slowly become aware of an aggressively boring world consisting of multi-million-dollar lawsuits, secretive organizations, politics, and international crime. It's good fun when you can ignore all of that and fix some bugs or write a neat program, though. Astronomy and stargazing. People will drive for hours just to get a dark sky with minimal or no light pollution, and light pollution is getting worse and more widespread every year. You know, I can't help but feel like you're not reading this question in the spirit it's meant to be interpreted in, but I do applaud you for your creative take on it. Well done. I don't know about a dark side to it as a hobby, but music. Great hobby, awesome creative outlet, but professional music and music academia is toxic. Expecting students to work for more than 12 hours a day, constantly being compared to others in negative ways, the massive substance use culture that surrounds music students. I don't know any music student that wasn't at least taking Adderall to study, if not white snow or other substances at times too. And professional music, at least professional orchestras and big bands, require such talent that you basically just have to practice non-stop for decades to get into them. Which you learned how to do in music school. You just pop some pills, do nothing but play your instrument, and have no life. It's getting better in a lot of schools and for a lot of people, thankfully. I absolutely agree. The culture is absolutely draining, and everyone treats you like a failure if you aren't constantly practicing. Everyone is super cutthroat, and eventually I hit a wall. Being an already fairly unstable ADHD and depressed, anxious kid all around, there is literally no way you can just explain away all these college students taking 8+ classes, on top of ensembles, concerts, practicing lessons, and even observations and workshops, as healthy or constructive. When I got physically injured and my school still expected me to be giving 120%, that's when I had to bail. Super toxic and exclusive crowd that I just really put up with for a love of the craft. Ham radio has a fair number of racist jerks and outright crazy people. The AITA band is like the 4chan of the airwaves sometimes. Classical music. I worked in a store that sold mostly classical records, and a lot of the hardcore fans were incredibly pushy and nasty, especially opera fans. And the whole world of classical performance is chock full of downright bullying behavior, obsession, and general craziness. Lego. It's a kid's toy, right? Wrong. We have a chronic problem where new releases sell out almost immediately, going for vastly marked up prices while being unavailable to the public for months on end. Also, the Lego Group treats product leaks like murder cases, surgically ferreting out the responsible party. It's the Marvel's Hitman joke. And don't even get me started on the figure market. This is a relatively new creation since COVID got a lot of adult fans into the hobby and searching for rare and nostalgic figures. Cue a bunch of absolute idiots going on eBay and buying specific figures in bulk because they think they're the new Wall Street bets. They'll coordinate their attacks, going after somewhat rare but not impossible to find figures like Bail Organa or Captain Rex, and sending the prices to the moon. This problem is uniquely pernicious to the LEGO Star Wars community, by the way, which has several very nasty influencers in it. Captain Rex is not a genuinely rare figure. He was in one set, yeah, but it was a cheap, mass-produced set that a lot of people have. His price should be somewhere around $35 to $40, like Grand Admiral Thrawn was before a certain M+R character brought a bajillion. Instead, both Rex and Thrawn can go for upwards of $100. It's frickin' mental. They've totally messed up the third-party market, treating it like a damned stocks game when all the general public wants is some cool toys. The LEGO Instagram and YouTube communities are absolutely terrible. Surprisingly, the Reddits aren't though, with the exception of the sales ones, predictably, which have very strict guidelines but still fall prey to drama around counterfeiting and catfishing. Pokémon Go. There are fights over gyms and PvP battles, mainly gyms. I think a couple of people have actually died over them. I'm going to say that model train fans are constantly daydreaming about tying someone to those tracks. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. I don't know if this is really surprising, but bodybuilding. Weight training and dieting is a great habit that I'd recommend to every young man. But every bodybuilder big enough to make it into magazines or even get big on Instagram is definitely using substances and PEDs. Young guys get into them just to keep up. The endocrine system is very delicate and complex, and guys in their early 20s or younger are just totally winging it by themselves with hormones bought online from China with Bitcoin. Best practice is to not try them unless you're prepared to be on it for your entire life, because your natural testosterone levels will never recover if you pin for long enough. That's a huge frickin' commitment for a young guy who likes lifting to make. I'm struggling to remember the name of the weight loss drug which is super effective to lose fat, but it's incredibly hard on your body, and even a small overdose can result in death through overheating. This stuff is really serious, and every young man who gets into it has to make a choice between becoming physically dependent on powerful, illegal substances and never measuring up to his idols. Endurance tickling. They got young men to get tied down to see who could withstand being tickled the longest as a competition, but then they uploaded it to adult sites for people to gratify themselves to. There was a great documentary about it called Tickled, and honestly, it's nuts. There's blackmail, death threats, stolen identities, the Secret Service shows up for a hot minute. I 100% recommend it. Best documentary and a total rollercoaster. Knitting. That's black magic right there. How can one piece of yarn turn into a hat? It's just not possible. I don't knit, I crochet, and I can certify that I'm totally a witch who sold her soul to the devil just so that I could transform one piece of yarn into a hat. It's amazing how many weapons are faked. Paratrooper M1A1 carbine? Likely a fake. Almost anything from the Third Reich is faked. Navy Lugers? Faked. The Singer Sewing Machine Company made about 500 M1911 pistols. Only about 150 survive. Winchester M97 trench weapons are faked. Snipers of almost any origin are also fakes. I could go on, but you have to have a very discerning eye if you want to be a collector of high-end antique weapons like this. I'm willing to put money on everyone who collects salt and pepper shakers having a body buried somewhere. Old ladies will throw down with a motherfricker for salt and pepper shakers. At my former job, we had shaker sets that were exclusive to certain holidays. For Thanksgiving, we had these cute little turkey sets, and every grandma that set foot in the store tried to go home with one. Due to their popularity, we were running low on turkey shakers every goddamn week. I had to calm down disgruntled old ladies who didn't get any and somehow make more magically appear so they didn't skin me alive. It was rough. It's very common for old people to steal Cracker Barrel salt and pepper shakers. A lot of retirees will visit every Cracker Barrel in the nation and steal the salt and pepper shaker as a collection. My wife worked there for a number of years in high school and loved catching old people trying to steal the salt and pepper shakers, especially if they were rather nasty customers. This new world of shaker espionage and smuggling is something that's completely breezed the narrator by in his hospitality life. I don't think anyone stole the S&P at my restaurant in the past, and we were old lady central. It does seem like something some of the more venomous harridans would do, though. The sweet ones? Definitely not. Writing a fanfiction? People can obsess over characters and have unhealthy attachments to them. Depending on the person, their real-life problems and personality might start to get written into their stories, which they can turn into any sort of fantasy. I just want to write a Star Wars sequel rewrite, man. To be fair, writing one's real-life problems into a fanfiction is an excellent way to heal for many people who've experienced traumatic events, as it gives them a safe, controlled space in which to confront their problems. The real dark side of fanfic, and fandom in general, in my opinion, is the people who take things way too far and attack others because they said something about a character, or they support a different fan theory, or... It goes on, and it's frankly quite sickening. playing drums. It's not a dark side per se, but people always underestimate the damage it can do to your hearing and fingers, which is nothing worse than blisters and calluses in my experience, but ear protection is more than necessary. Medieval hobbyists. SCA, HEMA, even more academically oriented, officially historically focused groups like Medieval Academy of America, the Renaissance Society, among others. What at first looks to be a fun excuse to go camping in funny clothes and drink a lot of homebrew and play battle with friends often turns out to harbor a lot of folks who are into white or Euro supremacy, religious fundamentalist, or militaristic and authoritarian mindsets. It seems they're all lured in by an idealized, mythologized societal peak that they falsely believe existed in their respective self-identification subcultures. The intersections of these different groups on their own, let alone how often they overlap with the other artists, performers, costumers, fantasists, renfolk, romantics, and academics that make up another portion of the memberships, can make for some very interesting social dynamics. I was with a woman who was into this. She got more and more obsessed, and then eventually quit her good job to make medieval dress-up clothes for herself full-time. She went on to more and more events without me, and by the time we broke up, I was barely seeing her. A lot of marriages have broken down like this. There's an insane amount of SCA drama going on 24/7, and they eventually focus on that all the time to the expense of the real world. On a similar note, this isn't shocking, but I've heard from friends that Civil War reenacting can get pretty toxic. Obviously, you've got the whole revisionist sect who want to glorify Confederates and human traders, but there's also a lot of angry, obsessive old men who'll throw a fit if your Union cavalry uniform doesn't have the right number of buttons and the perfect thread count. There was also that one time someone bought a real sword and hit someone in the face on horseback. Magic the Gathering. You'd be amazed at how many 400-pound good guys there are. I don't know for sure, but I always assume people that are super into model trains are sociopaths. Yes, as a train enthusiast, there are two types. The folks that put a cute train around the Christmas tree and don't really care about what it is, and the people who get upset that their N scale, that's 1 in 160 for you laypeople, SD40 Mac 2DH AC 130cc PRR number 4269 from Broadway Limited, has 6 more rivets than the actual one, and the headlight is the wrong shade of white, and they spend the entire run session complaining to everyone in earshot about it. I just want to run my little trains in peace, Jim. Tabletop role-playing. We have tons of guys that like weird stuff. I believe the question specified surprising. This isn't surprising. The worst part of role-playing games is the people that play role-playing games. That's why you get into it with your friends and only branch out with other friends and never engage with the hobby scene at all. Matchbox or similar car collectors. They're even weirder than fanatic model train people since they're after that one rare or defective piece out of a run of hundreds of thousands. I worked in a hobby shop years ago in the 1970s, and they were just weird. Like Jeffrey Dahmer weird. Creeped me the F out, but you had to help them out since that was the job. Years later, I was in a hotel in the Metro Chicago area for work, and they were having a Matchbox collectors convention. They were still just as creepy all those years later. I like to collect Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars. I usually just like to stick with trucks and muscle cars, and special ones based on movie or TV cars. I try not to take it too seriously, just finding ones that really appeal to me instead of the treasure hunts and red lines. But I hear about collectors who work at Walmart and other places that hoard all of the good ones that come in off the truck. I collect a few different kinds of toys for nostalgia, and let me tell you, adult toy collectors can be terrible, entitled brats. Contrary to what they believe, adults are not the target demographic. The companies are catering to children. Stop attacking them on social media. Stop bullying literal children about it. Scalping can be a huge issue as well. People would buy whole shelves of things just to resell at a markup. Adults who aren't into it sometimes assume the worst of you, and the worst varies. I'm just an adult who spends some of their fun money on cute, colorful things. Sometimes you're just trying to make friends and you stumble into a kink community. People can do what they like as long as it's safe, sane, and consensual, but you can really get ambushed by it or have it pushed on you. The most frequent kink grosses me out, actually, and I really have to watch who I interact with. alternate photography, vaporized mercury, cyanide, silver nitrate. For wet plate, there are some good substitutes, but you still really have to know what you're dealing with. Bug collecting for display purposes. If it's for study, I understand completely. Just to collect them and say that you have them? That's pretty creepy. However, if bugs totally are your thing, check out May's Natural History Museum. The collection is expansive and there's a few extinct species included, but the spiders made me run out of there. Pink Floyd album listening. As a Pink Floyd fan, I've learned even a lot of Pink Floyd fans don't like each other. I went to see Brit Floyd, one of the best Pink Floyd tribute bands out there, and I got stuck sitting next to a guy that was like the comic book guy from The Simpsons. He tried to turn what I thought was a casual conversation into a game of Trivial Pursuit. Dungeons and Dragons. Why? Because you're going to want to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on books, figurines, dice, and various other wastes of money. At 55, I'd already spent a few $100 on books and dice, and it's gotten worse. For real though, I had to stop playing D&D in college because nearly every session there were multiple people role-playing substance use and working girls to the point of it being uncomfortable. Biking tends to get a pass for being environmentally friendly, however carbon fiber bike frames at the end of their lives can still sit in a landfill. That being said, I love biking. Hiking is another one of those hobbies that gets a free pass for being environmentally friendly despite being bad for green spaces. Many more people than the community would like to admit are bad at the whole leave no trace policy and don't follow the best practices when dealing with wildlife. More directly related is the amount of goods that end up in the landfill. Dyneema is really bad because while it's really light and good for carrying, it doesn't last longer than a couple of seasons of heavy use. Ultralight backpacking has really screwed with the environmentally friendly aspect of hiking, as the trade-off for lighter gear is usually durability. Truffle hunting. My professor used to talk about how he knew guys that would get murdered just because of truffles. Or how if you find a good way to grow a mushroom like the morel in a farm, people would get attacked over that as well. What dumb moment made you break up with your hot significant other? She thought that Canada was in the middle of the United States, right next to Colorado. I wonder if she heard something about Wyoming being Colorado's Canada and it stuck with her. That day we got into a fight on whether or not rabbits lay eggs. They don't lay eggs, Katie. Easter is a lie. Go read a book. Legitimately thought that birds didn't have brains and that they would fly into her if she didn't move. It made it difficult to spend time together outdoors. She thought the hot, unbearable weather was caused by wildfires in Florida. We live in California. Other things she said included, but weren't limited to, if we have a power outage, will my car turn on? Visiting Japan? Do they have sushi restaurants there? Facepalm. My friend's girlfriend at the time asked my friend, in front of about 5 of us, if bacon was a meat. Needless to say, they didn't last very long. She thought KFC hot wings were bones dipped in chicken meat. Ugh. She swore up and down that I was the father of her child. Said child was 5 months old when we met. Being bored and having to fill up time with doing the deed is only good for so long, and then it just becomes hollow, which sounds good, but unfortunately it starts to grate on you. And just general embarrassment when I took her out with my friends and wanting to not be alive anymore when out with hers. Smoking hot, and she was really impressed that I could do multiplication in my head, like 6 times 7. Really? Okay, bro, you don't have to lord your amazing multiplication skills over the rest of us. We get it, you're a math genius. Don't hijack the story grouping. My nice, attractive ex really liked to spoil surprises for people. It was really embarrassing whenever he did it. What state is Africa in? My friend who's black is from Georgia, but I don't want to look like a racist and say Georgia. I had no response. It was as if she were draining the IQ points right out of me. When she found out I was Jewish, she said, I thought all of you got gassed or something in 1940. Such a gorgeous man, but so dumb about health. After we'd finished doing the deed one session, he asked me why I liked him to wear protection. I explained I didn't like that he wore them. I told him I preferred it without, but I was worried about pregnancy and disease, and he was like, I never knew that. Immediately went to go get tested after that, and I had him tested as well. Had to make sure to give him a lesson about the dangers of unprotected boinking before I finally broke up with him. I miss his body and his raw animal dumbness sometimes, but I think I made the right choice. He's actually the reason I want to be a health educator now. Oh, and by the way, he hadn't caught anything. It was just dumb luck that he never did, though. He kept pointing out that I was smarter and had more degrees, and he'd introduce his friends as his kind of people. It was frustrating because I never brought up my academic background around him, and it doesn't define me. A friend of mine used to do the same thing. When I stopped wanting to hang out with him, he said it was because I thought I was too good for him and his buddies. No, dude, I stopped hanging out with you because you kept bringing it up. She was gorgeous and a few years older than me. The second day of texting, she got in contact wanting to go out dancing, and I replied, "Okay, but just to let you know, I'm not that good. I have 2 left feet." She stopped replying to me. I thought to myself, no, she didn't actually think, did she? So I replied about 3 hours later saying, "Just so you know, I don't actually have 2 left feet. It's an expression for being bad at dancing." Her immediate reply back was, "Oh, thank God." It was at that point I knew I couldn't ever. She was a model but made her decisions based on her psychic's advice. He thought women's chests were always filled with milk, and he believed bazillion was an actual number. That it was okay to not use protection because it wasn't God's plan for me to have a baby right now. Get the frick out of there. When she turned around to me at the end of Independence Day and said to me that the movie was completely unrealistic because UFOs aren't that big in real life. His friends took me aside and told me that he has a history of whacking his ex-girlfriends. One of the guys actually looked scared that they were telling me. Goodbye, Johnny. I noped the F right out of there. I couldn't teach her how to play Tetris. She just couldn't grasp the concept of the game. It frustrated me so much that I stopped seeing her. When I later saw her in one of the Playboy College Girls issues, I was filled with a remarkable amount of regret. I'm actually marrying him in 13 days. I don't think he's dumb. He is very good looking though, but some of the things that he says do come off as such. He said something as I was saying it, and when I told him I was just thinking the same thing, he said, "I have tilapia." After a few minutes of having him repeat what he just said, he finally said, "I can read your mind." He meant telepathy, not a fish. He also thinks the curbs on the street are called curves, and thinks that raccoons are called ratcoons. He also says, "The bottom line is..." Oh, and this one just happened. We were playing with our daughter's dinosaur train toys, and he thought they were called carnivores because they eat plants and crops. There are just so many things, but I love them. He makes me laugh, and he's very nice. My old friend was dating a really hot girl when one day she pulled out chocolate milk and a strainer. With said strainer, she tried to turn chocolate milk into regular milk. The next day, he started questioning his choices. There was no real final straw, it was more like the fact that I couldn't possibly stand to be around her anymore. She was just so hot. Like step over your own grandmother hot, although she could barely hold a conversation and once confused a bunch of 7-year-olds playing hockey on the professional rink for the actual game we were watching when in line for beer at intermission. When she talked, I either couldn't really understand what she was saying because it made almost no sense, or it was just the most childish joke ever. My youngest cousin had a way sharper wit, but my God, this girl was hot. Hands down, the worst decision I ever made. Oh, this girl was definitely out of my league looks-wise, but she was proud of being stupid, petty about everything, and just annoying. But whatever, I was in my early 20s, and for whatever reason, she liked me, so I went along with it. Things seemed to be going fine when one day she asked me why I always drink so much. I thought about it and realized that I drank literally every day that I saw her, and never drank on the days I knew I wouldn't. Apparently, I just couldn't stand being around this girl unless I was drunk. I decided doing the deed wasn't worth that kind of lifestyle and broke it off the next time I saw her. I wanted to actually be sober when I did break up. Sometimes in life, when you're dating someone out of your league and wonder what they're doing with you, you can then cut to a few days, weeks, or months later and realize that there are hot people out there who are single for a reason, and then you have to work out how to get out of there. I was in Los Angeles, she was in San Francisco, and wanted to know what time it was in LA. She was born and raised in California. She asked which was closer, Florida or the moon. Beautiful girl she was, and amazing in bed, but a lot of the things that came out of her mouth just astounded me. I managed to put up with it for a while, simply because the boinking was incredibly enjoyable, but at a certain point you just have to take a step back and really think about the situation. The physical side might be fun, but not being able to connect with someone mentally in the long run is a grating thing. Oh, and the conversation of her believing that dinosaurs still existed, they were just hiding in the forests, that was really the final straw for me. And for everyone telling me that birds and some other animals are technically dinosaurs, I understand that, but that's not what I meant. When I'm saying that she was talking about dinosaurs still being real and alive, I meant the type of dinosaurs you would see in Jurassic Park. Not birds and some sea creatures that are descendants, I mean Tyrannosaurus, Velociraptors, Stegosaurus, and so on and so forth. When she quit her job at the Volkswagen dealership after she found out Volkswagen was founded by Third Reich officials. She thought Central America wasn't a thing. I mean, she's right. North or south, pick a damn continent, Panama. Super, uber hot, and a compulsive liar. The lying is what made her dumb. Like I'd believe she was a stage designer for major tours at age 19? That's a stupid and unbelievable lie, and they just kept coming. She was against immunization. She was convinced that the moon landings were faked. He was a model, but so dumb. I was getting ready for law school, but very inexperienced when it came to dating. We had a lovely time for a while, our chemistry was great, but he eventually ghosted me. A year later, we chatted online to catch up, and he admitted to me that he felt like he wasn't good enough for me, and that's why he stopped talking. With more dating experience, I now know that we wouldn't have worked out as a couple anyway. I realize now that dating someone of similar intelligence is more important than dating someone with superior looks. But damn, he sure was cute and had a majestic python. Gorgeous blonde girl, but really dumb. We met at work and my friend was her friend's brother, so we started talking a bit. She knew her boyfriend was cheating on her, so she cheated on him with me. I felt kinda bad, but her boyfriend was such an awful bullying d-bag. Then they broke up and we started going out. And then a few months later, she dumped me to run away to North Dakota with him. I wasn't really mad. They were both crappy people and deserved each other. She cheated on me, plain and simple. But to add salt to the wound, the guy she cheated on me with had the same name as myself. I mean, maybe she was really stupid and just got confused. He doesn't look like Johnny, but it's his name. Smart. When you cheat with people with the same name, you can't scream the wrong name during intimacy. You've got to give her credit on that one. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. His job was laying people off left and right. So, what does he do? He buys a car on payments. He lost his job the next week and had zero savings. I just couldn't handle the stupid anymore. To everyone saying he needed the car to get to work, no, he didn't. He had a reliable way of getting to work. He didn't even have his driver's license until after buying the car. He bought a car out of his price range at any rate. He had a history of buying things on credit and already had $3,000 worth of electronics bought on a credit card at the time. None of it paid off. The car was a fun purchase when he had zero savings and had a high chance of getting laid off. Such a stupid decision. Was listening to 9 Inch Nails. She called it stupid. Switched over to Wu-Tang. She said it was even stupider. Look, dig what you dig, but sometimes you just know things aren't going to work out. He was a total hottie, with wealthy parents who took us on a nice vacation one time and were super sweet people. The bedroom life was great. My first climax was had, which is a big deal for a college-age girl, just getting past the initial awkward teenage fumbling phase. But he was stuck in the grade school mindset that being dumb was cool. I said something along the lines of making a C on my first calculus exam, and he bragged about failing an entire college pre-algebra class. I just kinda ghosted him after that. On the second date, I got to meet his not-so-attractive, not-so-smart family. It was a super awkward 2 hours at the Olive Garden. Really? I've never met people who were so dumb that I couldn't at least just talk about their hobbies or something to keep them talking for a while? Unless they are that most unfortunate combination of dumb and boring. Most people aren't that genetically unlucky, though. She thought Sir Mix-a-Lot had ripped off Nicki Minaj. She was only 1 year younger than me, but she, had no knowledge of pop culture pre-2001. She had never seen Lion King, Hercules, basically the majority of the classic Disney movies. Basically, she made me feel old despite the fact that I was only 20 at the time. So then we're out in a bar and they start playing I Like Big Butts, and she comments, "Oh my god, this is a remix of Anaconda's stuff." I told her, no, this is the original. She didn't believe me, and as I sat there stunned, I realized, nope, this isn't worth the effort. I dumped her the next day. Magnificent butt, though. She told me to smell her hair one time and proudly announced, "It has fruticus in it." What? I replied, like people do. Fruticus. It's the main ingredient. It's by Garnier. It comes in a green bottle. It was Fructis. Garnier Fructis. She's still banging though, just dumb. I had to explain a Larry the Cable Guy joke to him. She was allergic to bananas, but she liked the flavor. So she ate banana-flavored baby food on a regular basis. If it didn't trigger the allergic reaction, that actually sounds pretty clever. If it still did, then I see your point. That's actually quite possible, actually. Several allergies only apply to unprocessed fruit or veggies. I have a friend who gets painful eczema from eating raw tomatoes, but soup or sauce are perfectly fine. Watching Star Wars when a scene with a hologram comes up. If they can do that kind of thing for a movie, why can't they do it in real life? Jesus tap-dancing Christ. She was a yoga instructor who was constantly getting attention from other guys. Constantly. I knew her through a mutual friend, and I suppose she found the fact that I didn't chase her appealing. Regardless, she initiated with me. We dated for a bit. Physically, we were very compatible. However, she was constantly demanding attention from me and expected me to cater to her every whim while we were out, which I would do to a degree, but never to her satisfaction. Because of her attractiveness level, her previous boyfriends would do anything for her at the drop of a hat. That's just not really my style. I wasn't ever disrespectful of her or treated her poorly, I just wasn't a relationship gopher. One night at a friend's birthday, even downtown, she kept telling me about how many guys were hitting on her at the location we were at. She became irritated that I wasn't up in arms about the whole ordeal and that I should show more concern about how much attention she was getting. I responded with, "Should I worry about you going home with one of them?" And she replied, "If you don't start acting like you give a crap, then maybe I will." My final response was, "Go for it then." It may have been a little callous on my end, but I was really done dealing with that kind of crap. When she asked me if World War II was a war fought between England and Scotland. She thought that Cubist artists were from Cuba. She read that Picasso was Spanish and got confused. In an art exposition dedicated to him that she made me go to with 5 of her family members on a fricking Sunday. Oh, and I also had to explain to her why climbing up a staircase was harder than climbing down. And for that, I also had to go through how gravity works. Worth noting, she wasn't a child. She was estranged from most of her family except for one of her siblings. I asked what that sibling did for a living, and she got agitated with me that I'd ask such a thing. She was a God-fearing Republican who referred to anyone left of her political position, such as myself, as a violent liberal. I'm also an atheist. The final straw was that she wanted to have children someday, and I most definitely did not. She wasn't on the pill, so we always used protection, except for that one time she climbed onto me while I was fetching it. I instantly pictured 18 years saddled to this woman paying for a child I didn't want. We lasted a couple more weeks, but I knew it was over. She thought that the word town had 3 syllables. We were at Chipotle with friends, and out of the blue she exclaims, "Wow, I just realized the word town has 3 syllables. Tau-wu-nz," while slowly clapping with each syllable like you learn to do in elementary school. She thought it was safe to accept drinks from random people at clubs. I rhetorically asked if Hungary was a country. She said she doesn't listen to country. He thought that his phone kept getting heavier because of all the apps he'd installed. She had a pet cockatiel. She figured it would like to spend some time in the sunlight and fresh air, so she put it on her finger and took it outside with her. The second she got outside, it flew away. She cried for days, and I just couldn't find sympathy. She told me that the fact that I believed in evolution was the most stupid, uninformed thing that had ever come out of my mouth. I was a zoology major, now a med student. One of my classes in college was literally called evolution, and yet I was the dumb one. As a history major who was once told by a mostly lovely but not galaxy-brained former partner that history was pointless because we can't go back and see what actually happened with our own eyes, I feel for you. I had a beautiful girlfriend once that a lot of people would think was dumb. Every time she said something ridiculous, I'd just agree with her and carry it further as if we were both joking just in the same way. She'd laugh and always had a great smile with big beautiful eyes. Whenever she got mad at me for something, I'd just look at her and say, "I didn't do or say that to make you upset. Why would I do that on purpose? I'm always on your side." And she'd believe me. In fact, it was the truth, but so many people just can't get past the little peeves and annoyances. For her, it was just as simple as explaining that her boyfriend was always on her side. For my part, whenever I started to get upset with her, I'd always internally compare what I was upset about to not having her, and she'd always win. In the end, she said she wanted to be free. No reason given, and as her friend, I'd always considered love as something you give, not get. So where I could have held on, I just let her go. You can't own people anyway, and I was only ever her friend. It's been years, and I'm still the only person she's ever had a long-term relationship with, and she's still the only person I've ever loved that much. Insisted that he needed to change out the air in his tires because it was springtime. He said the air in them was winter air, and the pressure would be all wrong because it was too cold. He emptied his tires completely before refilling them. These stories are the braggiest of the humble brags. Well, after I told her I was an apprentice of Stephen Hawking while simultaneously working in a lab developing a cure for a transmissible disease, she took out her beautiful double D chest and asked me if chicken was a fish. I knew we could never be together then. Barf. She asked, "Is it true that you're colorblind?" I said, "Yep." "Oh wow, that's awesome. I look so much better in black and white." Here are some examples. She saw 10:10 p.m. on a digital clock and asked if 1001 was ever a year. She knew we were in 2000 and something, whatever year it was, but wasn't sure if 1001 had ever been a year. She tried tanning under the lights in my living room. She wanted to put diesel in her car because it was cheaper. She thought a lower unit price at Walmart was more expensive. You get less units. How is that better? She thought doubling the recommended heat in the oven would cut the cooking time by 75%. Seriously, no clue how she came to that conclusion. She also thought the sport of bowling was started by people with 3 fingers. I may have suggested that one to her to see if she'd buy it, and she did. She was definitely a 9.5 to 9.7 out of 10, but she had the social skills of a particularly stupid hamster. She tried to be best friends with everyone instantly, which drove people away almost all the time. She couldn't maintain any female friendships. She used doing the deed with people like a bargaining tool and gave it away too easily. She had no maturity or coping skills. She valued nobody else's time or energy. And the final straw was that when she imagined that a guy outside the bar made a rude face at the bartender, this offended her, so she went outside and proceeded to stomp this dude on the shin. For no frickin' reason. I said, F that, and I bailed. She thought the periodic table was an app to keep track of her cycle. While having dinner with my family, she insisted that she wanted to go into politics. Cool, I'm okay with that, just stop talking, honey. The next thing out of her mouth very genuinely was, "And if that doesn't work, I'm gonna move to Florida and become a mermaid." A fricking mermaid. What phase did you shock your parents by never growing out of? Skateboarding. I'm 37 and I'm still at it 27 years later. Falls hurt so much more now, probably because of the falls from 15 years ago. Still, I've never found anything that comes close to replacing it in my life. My obsession with flying. I'm working on my instrument rating now. I started playing cocktail piano music for parties at age 14, just for fun. Then I started getting paid handsomely for it with generous tips in the brandy snifter. Now I do it regularly when asked for special occasions. Listening to metal music. I pushed through my teenage years and I still love it. I'm 35 and I still listen to a lot of the heavier stuff. I grew out of the image, but not the music. Playing video games and playing bass guitar and spinning records. Mine convinced me that all of my old Magic the Gathering cards were a waste of money. I sold them all 17 years ago, and seeing their value today is disgusting. One of my friends said his father tore up his decks to get him to stop wasting his damn time, and apparently one of the cards was a Black Lotus. Listening to music all the time. I just love picking up an album, sitting my butt down and just listening to it start to finish without ever leaving my seat. Feels a lot like watching a good movie afterwards. I don't know many people that do this either. My sister did a report on the meat industry as a freshman in high school. She became a vegan as a result. She's now 32 and has been strictly vegan ever since. Yeah, it turns out that when we see the start-to-finish process up close, a lot of people just outright refuse to have anything to do with that crap. Fair enough. Not everyone, but then again, most people who work in the industry are part of one isolated process and don't see the full process from factory farm to supermarket packet. How unsocial I am. My mother was sure I'd eventually meet the right people or come out of my shell, but I quite simply don't enjoy spending time with many people. I find groups of greater than 5 a total drain of energy, and with small groups, I often get pretty bored and want to go home 2 or 3 hours after meeting up. There have been a handful of people I've met which I could really spend 24/7 with and not feel the need to leave. It's a rare thing, and weirdly, I don't really know what made them so tolerable or made me like their presence, but it does happen. It's not common enough for my mother, though. She thinks I'll end up a hermit. Not wanting kids. I've known that pretty much since the first hair grew on my Jimmy John. Everyone said I'd change my mind and grow out of it, and I never did. Me too. I find it hilarious that because they say, you'll change your mind, you also don't get to decide when you want your reproductive bits fixed. Some people might change their minds, however, some of us never will. My interest in history. My parents were against it because they didn't think that I'd ever be able to hold down a job. I worked extremely hard, earned a great degree from a top university, currently the youngest person working at a fairly prestigious job, have traveled to multiple non-Western countries, and I'm looking into great PhD programs. I never plan on not doing history. In elementary school, I was very talkative and extroverted. Good student, but always got the teachers annoyed because I'd talk to people and distract everyone. Not a class clown, just chatty. Then I got really quiet and stopped going out of my way to talk to people. I'm still introverted as F. No, I don't know what happened. My parents, mainly my stepdad, were pretty racist, and they thought that my feelings on the subject, by which I mean liking or not liking someone based only on their skin color was wrong, would absolutely change as I got older. I'm 44, and my feelings have not changed. My glorious neck-length strawberry blonde hair. Resenting them for my weird and damaging upbringing. Looking like a homeless person. Pokemon. My parents used to tell me I'd lose interest in gaming as I grew up. That didn't happen. I don't really understand the outgrowing gaming thing. It's like it was the choice of entertainment when our generation was young, and I still play games occasionally. TV was the boomers' choice of entertainment. Before that, it was music and radio. Did all of them outgrow that? Likely not. Making things and doing crafts. Ever since I was first handed crayons and construction paper, I've been filled with the desire to create. My mum thought I was crazy a couple of years ago when I quit my corporate job and opened a shop on Etsy. It was very successful and I made a lot of money. It became a little too stressful though, so I went back to my old job. However, I trained my mum on how to run the shop, and now she's able to work from home more, which she loves. I love that she learned creativity is not just a silly hobby or waste of time. Me being single. My love of cars and trucks. How much I tickle my own pickle. My social anxiety. That I didn't want children. It's been 26 years since I made that assertion, and that I thought religion was stupid. She isn't a grandmother, and I'm not suddenly a practicing Jew. The whole lesbian thing. This was submitted by user Scottish Lesbian. Oh, good thing the Scottish part was just a phase, right? Right? Fortunately, they're not out of their phase on that one either. Biting my nails. I was born brain damaged. I also have ADHD and OCD. But here's the tragic part. I don't look disabled at all. I look very normal at first glance. My parents were confused when I couldn't do math well and had trouble, huge trouble with tasks such as setting the table and cleaning. They thought, the kid is just pretending to be stupid to mess with us. This is all just a long con to get out of chores. I'd also often fall while biking or roller skating. They got angry with me and told me to quit being so careless. I'm 27 and they still think I'm just messing with them. Normal people just don't get it. They just don't. Their attitude is, "What do you mean you can't set the table? How is that even possible?" It is possible. It's absolutely possible. They say, "A 4-year-old could do this, so obviously someone who's 27 could too." No, he or she couldn't. Maybe it's counterintuitive to you, that doesn't stop it from being 100% true. The fact that your parents can be this deep in denial when you've presumably told them that you have been diagnosed as these things is both breathtaking and deeply tragic. They'd be happier if they accepted it, in all likelihood. Having piercings and tattoos on my body. I have facial piercings that'll be turning 18 this year. Although my parents swore no one would ever hire me with piercings and visible tattoos, I'm a gainfully employed medical professional. Reddit. It's been part of my daily routine for 13 years. Being gay. My grandma still thinks my younger cousin is confused. He just turned 33. Crap, I thought it was just a phase. From 11 through 19, I just sat there like an idiot thinking, everyone goes through these confusing feelings about being gay. I'll grow out of them. Then one day in college, I realized, oh no, wait, this is permanent. In middle school, I legit thought it was normal to look at men in the buff, because obviously I was just curious about the male anatomy. I thought one day my body would flip a switch and I'd start being attracted to women. They thought I'd grow out of talking back. Now I'm an accomplished intercollegiate debater. Wearing black all of the time. At one point in middle school, my parents refused to buy me any more black clothes, so I opted for dark purples and blues, which they couldn't really argue with. Over 15 years later, yeah, there's a reason I wore all black as a kid. It looks good on me. And so 90% of my wardrobe is still black, with exceptions from my other favorite color, teal, and some striking navy blue dresses I've picked up over the years. Me not ever wanting to have children. I found myself a great child-free husband and we're living happily ever after. Despite my parents and everyone else saying I'd changed my mind. I've known it since I was 12, I'm in my 30s now and I've never been more sure. I love my life. Luckily for them, they've accepted it. Atheism. I grew up in a fairly religious household and when I was a teenager, I stopped believing in God. They figured I'd come back to the church eventually, but after 16 years, it's not looking likely. Depression and anxiety. It's been 15 years. Still going strong. Yay! Anime. Nope, that crap stays with you for life. My parents gave me so much crap for it. But I liked it. They'd belittle me, forbid me, and generally judge me for my interests as if I was some terrible person. My mum didn't get it because apparently it's gross and weird, and therefore the worst thing ever. Didn't matter that I was lead in the school musical, never went to parties, got good grades, and played sports. I was wrong and messed up for liking anime. Now, at 27, I still enjoy it. It didn't warp me or mess me up. My mum has since chilled out after escaping the awful bullying environment that my father put on us. Now my younger brother is into it. We share interests in several animes, but he's into the, hardcore stuff, and I don't so much approve, but only because that obsession stems from his crippling lack of self-esteem and social immaturity. It holds him back and gives him excuses to hide inside himself. What my mother doesn't understand is how anime, like every single hobby out there, has just as much bad elements as good. She just can't accept that and it's holding her back from connecting with her kids. Being a girl. Yep. Thankfully, the phase theory went the way of the Barbies a long time ago. Being a metalhead that wears mostly black. Yep, 30 years and still headbanging. Listening to punk rock. 12 years later, my old man rolls his eyes whenever I play that headbanging crap. The fact that I'm an atheist. I told them when I was 14 years old and they laughed it off, saying that I was probably confused. They told me it was just a phase and they were totally sure I'd believe it again soon. I'm 21 and I still don't believe in anything mystical. I'm 100% atheist. My obsession with baking. They said it was too feminine. Guess who's not getting any of my muffins? You're lazy and you don't want to do your work. Turns out I have severe ADHD and an anxiety disorder. Joke's on you, parents. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Technically it did end because of professionalism, but I used to love doing crazy stuff with my hair. I had a red ombre, regular black and blonde ombre, the Skrillex look, shaved on the sides and long on top, a white blonde pixie cut, and pink hair. They said I'd look back and cringe. I look back and, man, I was hot as hell. Someday I'll be my own boss or working in a more creative field and I'll do it all again. Being an eco-warrior. My dad thought it's just a kid's hobby when an 11-year-old me bought a book on ecology and started sorting the trash. Gradually, he himself started recycling, saving energy and reusing. He doesn't admit my input, though. Physics. Social conventions and parental expectations of a safe, job-secure major made them make me join the mainstream of engineering that rules India today. They thought I'd forget physics, shut the frick up and get a cozy, middling job catering to their normal aspirations. Well, I stuck with it, self-studied physics, and they began supporting me in patches. And here I am, an undergraduate thesis in cosmology later, hoping graduate school applications in physics go well. I'm really a lesbian, and I still don't eat meat. Clichés for everyone. Dungeons and Dragons. I started playing it in '84 when I found a boxed set in a garage sale for $1. I still play it nowadays. Amen to that. The narrator's fascination with RPGs is going strong after 22 years. Although, to be fair, my parents likely knew that I was going to be a massive nerd my entire life. Those early yearbook photos are very telling. My love for professional wrestling. It started when I was 13, and by 15, I was telling them I wanted to be a wrestler. I'm 21 now and in the process of getting my body training going full blast before going to a wrestling school starting this summer. Loving punk rock, dyeing my hair bright colors or shaving my head or something in between. Being online all the time. I married the man that I met online. Video games. I'm still addicted, homies. That's what you get for never buying me a Nintendo. And, of course, being a disappointment. Mine thought that me living with them was a phase. Crap. Being socially awkward. Homosexuality. My obsession with the TV show Emergency. I'm now 55 years old and have been a paramedic for 37 years and a nurse for 24 years. Not wanting to have children and not doing substances or drinking booze. I'm 39, still child-free, and I don't take anything harder than Advil. Legos. I'm 25 and I still love me some Legos. Being vegan. Made the switch almost 2 years ago and I have no plans on going back. Wearing clothes of black, blue, and grey tones. Still stuck with some goth clothes as well. My mother told me computers were just a fad. Now I'm a support analyst making nearly twice as much as my father does after 27 years of law enforcement. I really love SpongeBob. When I was a kid, I constantly asked for SpongeBob sheets or other merch to decorate my room, but my mom insisted I style my room so it would grow with me. Senior year of high school, it was time to get new sheets, and guess what I asked for and finally got? I have SpongeBob stuff all over my room, a desk covered with SpongeBob McDonald's toys, a clock, posters, a calendar, SpongeBob stickers on almost everything I have. I even mounted a frisbee on the wall because it looked better there, and I don't play frisbee. I'm 21 and have plans to get 2 SpongeBob tattoos in the future. I can't see myself falling out of love with the show anytime soon. Dyeing my hair different colors. I started bleaching and dyeing my hair in 3rd grade on my own, and I've been doing it ever since. The whole goth thing. I'm 29 and a mum now, and the darkness inside hasn't quite worn off. My childhood. Women's chests. My Chinese cartoon watching. Rock music, science fiction and fantasy, preferring not to be enclosed in the warm embrace of Jesus' love, the list goes on. My wife. We were high school sweethearts and no one thought it would last. Dated 3 years and then we got married and had 3 kids. Been married for over 17 years. Piercings, tattoos, and body mods. Me being a jerk. Wanting to leave my home country. It wasn't so much that they disapproved of it, but that I was just such an awkward homebody when I was younger that it didn't seem plausible. My dad traveled for a living, so it wasn't like it was a completely new concept to my family. Now my mum encourages it and thinks I should make it a focus once I leave college. My love for video games and cosplay. Been cosplaying 17 years now and gaming for 26. Being transgender. When I came out, my mum said, "No, you're not." 7 years later, she's paying for my name change. Well, I'm happy that the last bit would at least seem to suggest that she's accepted you for who you are, so congratulations. I'd say that trans, gay, and atheists seem to be the biggest answer group here. Good on all of you for being true to yourselves. Horses. Love at first sight. Mum got lucky and once managed to buy a few lessons for me. Then my father left and we were in poverty until I was in high school and could be a working student for a show barn. Traded hours and hours of work for a few minutes in the saddle of the crappiest horses that no one else wanted to ride. Not that I'm complaining. I never won any ribbons, but I damn sure learned to ride literally anything with 4 legs. I thank the trainers there that I was able to have such an opportunity at all. Fast forward a lot of years of barely being able to take some lessons here and there, and finally at 29 years old, I was able to purchase my own thoroughbred. I still work my butt off to afford him and his care. I found a barn where I can work off the majority of my board, but it's 100% worth it to achieve the dream I've had since I can remember. Now I have the best horse I could have asked for. He was a terrible racehorse, but he's the sweetest, coolest guy I could have got. Hopefully we end up eventing, but if he doesn't like that, we'll go for jumpers. His name? Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Dyeing my hair unnatural colors. I've been doing it since I was 14, and now I'm 26 with green hair. Being into art and drawing. Dad wanted me to put down the pencil and be a scientist or railroad worker. Kept telling me my uncle could get me a job when I went to design school. Joke's on him, I'm a designer now. People pay me money to draw all day. Ha! The heavy metal music and dressing all in black, nerd, goth style at age 13. I'm now 22 and I still dress that way. My endless attempts to avoid all social contact. Grew my hair out long, had a good 2 to 3 year stint where I didn't own a single t-shirt that wasn't black, started being pretty sad all of the time, and started listening to much different music. Teenage stuff, I guess. While they might have been right about the lack of colors being a phase, I still really love emo music. Emo isn't a phase, Mom. First-person shooter games, computers, anything like that. That's not to say my parents didn't like computers, they just thought I'd move on. My depression. I really do wish it was just a phase. Cartoons, video games, anime, among others. Anime, I still watch, but I'm pretty selective. But I got 2 video games for Christmas, and there's new episodes of Steven Universe on Monday. I'm 28, married, and we just had our first kid. Sleeping with stuffed animals, only eating 3 or 4 different foods, and watching cartoons. Being antisocial. Frick people. Hey, frick you too, pal. Being obsessed with cats. Playing the drums. About to do a 2-month tour in Europe and just got booked for a week of shows in Japan. Becoming a Christian. Punk. Listening to metal, going to concerts, and wearing jeans and band t-shirts. Turns out I wasn't just pretending to be bisexual and transgender, but was in fact those things. 10 years after coming out, and they still think it's just a phase. Just a really long phase. Beard. Granted, I was well into my 20s when I stopped shaving. My parents assumed I'd eventually get sick of it and shave it off, complaining about how I look like a hobo every visit. That was 7 years ago. Today, my glorious chin waterfall of man hair cascades all over my chest. Nobody complains about it. My wife came to accept it after about a year. My parents gave up after about 2. I got into metal music around age 15 and changed what I wear to leather and denim jackets with the band patches. Now I'm 20, I still love metal music and have a few battle jackets, and I designed my own patches. Horses. I took lessons for 7 years, got my own horse, went to farrier school and have been a farrier for 6 years now. Went on a trail ride with my horse today. Never going to let go of him. My parents used to tell me that I'd lose interest in gaming as I grew up. That didn't happen. I think my mum always assumed that my eating issues were just the usual teenage self-consciousness, but it's been 5 years and 40 pounds now, and I really think she's going to have to realize she's going to have a skinny, salad-loving daughter who swears she hates chocolate. Thinking that toots are funny. They always have been and always will be. Staying up all night. Paradoxically, I'm also a morning person, but I loathe afternoons. Seriously, why can't I nap from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m.? Single and child-free. I'm 45. Tooting on my sister's head. What are the biggest secrets of theme parks? At the park I worked for, the games were easier to win earlier in the day so that people would carry around the giant prizes and entice other people to play. Don't ever go in the ball pits. Little kids track all sorts of food and grime into the pit and regularly go number 1 in there since they confuse it for a pool. The balls are only cleaned once a week, and that generally means just putting them in a net bag and hosing them off. You just keep spraying until the water stops coming off brown. They're then air-dried and not sanitized in any way. Former Six Flags employee here, my park is the safest in the country because we call the rides down for rain, for people hurling, and for lost items. They could just be obstructing the track. So if a ride is down, it's probably not for a mechanical reason. We even pulled an emergency stop while I was being trained on one roller coaster because a military official lost his ID and was threatening my boss if we didn't go get it for him. If people knew how small that issue was, they'd be furious that we stopped the ride. I could individually control the speed of your go-kart, so if you were a jerk to me, you were going to lose every race you were in. All I had to do was press the button corresponding to the kart, and then would press a number that would set the max speed. It was in miles per hour if I recall correctly. Pretty sure there was also an all karts button to set the speed and stop of all of the karts at once. My friend in high school used to work at Hershey Park, and one day we went together. When we ordered lunch, I was just planning on asking for a cup of water with my meal so I didn't have to pay an extra $5. My friend told me to ask the cashier for a cup of magic water instead of just a cup of water. I trusted this friend, so I did what she said. When I received my cup of magic water, I took a sip, and to my surprise it was Sprite. So I got a free cup of Sprite with my meal that day. Worked a churro cart next to a large pond in the park. At night, it was impossible to keep the bugs out of the cinnamon and sugar bin. That's some extra protein right there. But yeah, that seems like the sort of thing you pay the health inspector to look the other way for. About 8 years ago, I managed a whitewater rafting ride, the big donut tubes that can sit 6 people, as a side job while in college. One day, the water filter broke down. The managers kept the ride running for over 2 weeks anyway. The water smelled so bad and turned dark green/brown. The inside of the rafts smelled like an old porta potty. We were instructed to tell guests the water filter was broken, but the water was clean, which I'm pretty sure was a lie. Thankfully, being a shift leader, I didn't need to go anywhere near the water, but I did feel bad for my employees and the guests who rode, despite looking obviously disgusted by the smell. A lot of scary, dangerous rides are operated by stupid teenagers. My source? I was a stupid 16-year-old learning to operate rides at Six Flags. Yikes. Don't they count as heavy machinery? Are OSHA regulations state by state or nationwide? Because where I live, you have to be 18 to legally operate heavy machinery. Anyone under 18 couldn't operate the photo printers at my last job because of it. I'm fairly sure they're not considered heavy machinery, which is screwed up, but that sums things up nicely. Throw up with no visible blood is either cleaned up with a sawdust-like material to soak up the liquid and then swept into a dustbin, or just hosed off with a garden hose. The coaster seat or table is usually not sanitized or anything, so you're sitting in dried chuck-up particles. That sawdust material was used way back when I was in grade school, and yep, it's used for everything. I don't expect more than a hose for chuck-up on rides. It's probably not dangerous if you're properly clothed, like not super short shorts and a top that covers your back. Many rides require this anyways these days. But if it was damp and milky particles, I'd be worried. I'd just be wary of wet ride seats unless it was raining. My place used to say that any change or cash lost on a ride was donated to charity. If they meant the charity of their employees' pockets, then they weren't lying. Quarters were the good ones to find since it was rarely bills. I worked at Dollywood when I was 18. Most ride operators are minimally trained. I even accidentally pressed the harness release, panicked and started the roller coaster. You should have seen people's faces as the train started rolling and harnesses popped open. Also, the software running the ride was Windows 95. This was in 2006 or 7 on a ride built in 2004. I'll add another secondary story about that coaster. This was the Tennessee Tornado, which had harnesses shaped like a U that went down over your head and across your chest into your lap. One day we had a rather large man, probably nearing 450 to 500 pounds, wearing a bright orange shirt. He somehow manages to actually get into the seat at the very front of the train, and as we're checking harnesses, this guy goes down exactly one click. Everyone knows that ratcheting sound from amusement ride restraints. Dozens of clicks on the way down, and this man's went one. It wasn't even across his chest, it was a few degrees short of being perfectly horizontal across his body. The only thing keeping this man from dying was one click of a ratchet. I've ridden this coaster by myself in the morning for pre-operation check. G-force essentially holds you in the seat by itself. My 160-pound, 18-year-old body would never leave the seat during any of the loops. I don't know if gravity would have held this man in the seat had that one click failed. I just remember the three of us dock workers standing at the rear of the deck watching this glowing orange 6XL t-shirt look like a pumpkin strapped to a missile go around 3 quivering loops before coming back safely to the station. My aunt and uncle work for Disney World. Apparently when someone chucks up on a ride, it's called a protein spill. Ex-Disney cast member here, we call it a Code V. Also, if you ever hear a cast member yell 105 to another cast member, that means he or she thinks a nearby park guest is hot and the cast member is alerting nearby coworkers to see. We used to crank up the amount of salt in the fries and then build a soda stall next to it. Next, we'd remove some of the paths to trap guests in the salty fries and expensive soda area. We made a killing. Most theme parks avoid paying overtime because they're considered seasonal. Therefore, they understaff and get employees to work 60-hour weeks, usually at less than stellar pay rates. That's completely legal though. As far as shady crap, the instances are few and far between because parks are cash cows and no one wants to mess that up. At the water park I worked at, the pools had their pH levels checked constantly. 2 people's jobs was to walk around all day and continuously check the levels. The food is crap at these places, but that's not a dirty little secret. I worked at the Fudgery in Six Flags. It's technically a part of retail, so none of the employees have any food safety training, which means the back is never cleaned properly. It had mold, and kids don't get new gloves after handling disgusting, sweaty money. Worked at Cedar Point for a summer on disaster transport. May she rest in peace. Despite being an indoor ride, it would have to go down anytime there was a significant amount of rain because the roof leaked. Supposedly because the fireworks they set off from the beach would burn holes in it, but I don't know how true that actually is. This is especially significant for disaster transport because it didn't run on a track like most coasters. It ran freely in a bobsled-like trough. So the ride itself would actually be affected by the weight distribution in a given train. It would also fishtail around corners really badly if the troughs were wet. So every time it rained, we'd send one of us to ride every couple cycles to feel whether or not it was fishtailing yet, because there was no other way to know without shutting the whole ride down to walk the troughs. If we could tell that it was fishtailing, the ride would go down for mechanical reasons. We'd wait until the rain let up, then start running empty trains through to assist with drying everything up, with one of us going through occasionally until we could tell that the fishtailing had stopped. The real secret is that the ride was 100 times more fun when it was fishtailing because it was less predictable. Another case of the ride being a little unsafe making it more fun, there was a brief period of time where someone with an employee badge asked for an air hawk from the ride operators on the Skyhawk. They'd intentionally not push the harnesses all the way down. Definitely not enough that you were going to fall through, but enough to get some absolutely sick airtime while the ride was going. To this day, I still try to position myself in the seat in a way that the harness will be a couple of clicks short of where it's supposed to be because it's so frickin' fun. Well, the narrator expected all the stories of gross hygiene breaches and horrible working conditions for the poor teens. He didn't expect that the staff in these places were just constantly testing to see if the rides were below the accepted level of deadliness. Absolutely wild. I used to be in management for a small family-owned park in Utah. They hire lots of 14 and 15-year-olds because they own a few cattle. And I'm not exactly sure how this works, but I think technically they're considered farmhands, which allows them to work at a younger age than the usual 16. Since this place is one of the only employers in Utah to do this, they hire tons of young'uns. Disney has an underground tunnel system for workers in different areas of the park to move around so that you don't see people dressed up from any other area out of their place. Also, there's a color Disney uses in their parks that's the least detectable shade of green so that trash cans and stuff are basically hidden in plain sight. The colors are called Go Away Green and Blend in Blue, and they can be seen almost everywhere in the park. Also, Disney World was built on elevated land because Florida is one giant bog, and their underground system simply wouldn't be possible below ground. Former ride op who worked on multiple major-level parks here, how often the ride crew members are hungover and possibly still drunk is a massive concern. You work with the same people day in and day out. You become family. Especially at the age when you don't have much responsibility other than putting gas in the car, all you're doing is partying. The park closes at 10 p.m., and by 11 p.m. you're shotgunning beers in your manager's backyard, while the new kid is doing backflips off the roof of the house into the pool. This goes on until 4 or 5 a.m., and all you have to do is be at work at 9:30. Good times. Also, the inter-park relationships. MTV should really do a reality show on working at an amusement park. The amounts of drama is crazy. Ex-employee of Phantasialand, Germany. The African immigrant workers were all sent to work on the Black Mamba ride. It's kind of embarrassing. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Every morning the wave pool is crystal clear. When it's not, it's because of wee-wee, sunblock, dirt, etc. Everyone knows they're full of these things, but I don't think people realize how clean the water is when it starts off in the morning. I worked at Worlds of Fun. I passed all ride operating tests without actually being at the ride itself or ever seeing the panel. Since I passed the tests, I could then operate any of the rides at any point during the season, even though I realistically had never seen any of them before. It's been a while since I worked at Disney. Here's what I can remember. Code words. 101, ride down, and 102, the ride's back up. Those are the official ones. The unofficial ones? Well, there was 105 for an attractive guest, 737 is a fat guest, and 747 is a fat guest on an ECV. We spread Vauban on the throw-up. As others have described, it's a sawdust-like material with an incredibly distinctive smell. And we do indeed hate you. That one clever thing you do to try and get a rise out of us? Yeah, we've seen that a million times before. Being nice is a great way to get us to treat you well. Nice people get to ride again if I'm feeling generous. People who try to insist to ride again stop the ride for everyone else. We had a little book which had the ability to rectify situations. You dropped your soda? We'll get you another one. Weren't supposed to, but we did give them out for magical moments. We could give you a fast pass for any ride in the park and for free food. At the end of the night, we walk the track and locate items lost. Some of the unsavory employees, cast members, would find items and take them. One guy I knew sold the stuff on eBay all the time. And yes, we can get you into the park for free. No, we're not going to. Some people sell their passes. You can be termed for it. Didn't stop them. When you work the hotels there, we give back ridiculous amounts of money for stupid inconveniences. In addition, if someone is really nice or celebrating something, we can deliver free stuff to the room. Once spent $300 on someone because they were incredibly kind and celebrating a milestone anniversary. And if you complain enough, Disney will cater to you. My ex's mum never made reservations for anything. She'd just go and insist she had a reservation, argue shamelessly for 15 to 20 minutes, and eventually we'd be seated. It was always awkward. I didn't work at Disney during the time. I did it for Cinderella's Royal Table, the steakhouse in Canada, Epcot, Crystal Palaces, literally any restaurant. We know you're full of crap, we've heard everything. At the end of the day, it's a job, and most, aside from college program kids who actually think the experience is going to mean something in their lives, don't give a crap about you, how much you've saved for years, among the other usual excuses. We're doing a minimum wage job and we don't get paid enough to deal with your crap. Listen for context. Have a magical day is frequently used as go F yourself. How gross the food is. Overpriced and frozen, dropped on the floor and picked up with unwashed hands. I worked in the in-park subway and my manager made me wash off the moldy tomatoes to serve to customers because she forgot to order fresh food. Subway. Eat mold. We're officially out of bought license plates. Kids go number 2 in the wave pool constantly. All we do is clear it out for 10 minutes and then let people back in. You should never mess with ride ops. Safety is always number 1, and I will kick you out of the park if you're threatening someone's safety, including your own. Listen to all the instructions given, even if you don't agree, because it's there to prevent you from being hurt. Yet another tip from the Basic Human Decency Handbook that still so many people will completely disregard. Give the poor teens a break. They're just trying to get through the day. Not lurid, but just behind the scenes from a different angle. I worked as an acrobat in a show at a park one summer, and it was amazing. I got paid $125 a day, so as a 19-year-old like a decade ago who had been waiting tables for 12 to 13-hour shifts during the summer before, it felt like I was an actual rock star or something. I had money for my monthly rent in less than a week each month, and money to spare that I could blow on clubbing and stuff. I had 3 half-hour shows a day with 2 3-hour breaks between shows. During the breaks, I could go ride rides because as a contracted employee through the production company, I wasn't technically a direct employee of the park. It was a medium-sized park that I thought was large when I was a high schooler, but I got tired of the rides in like 3 or 4 days. Then I wandered the water park and found the lazy river and realized I could just ride the lazy river all day and tan and get paid for it. Later, even that got boring to do all day, so I'd just spend my time between shows getting better at my acro that I was performing in the show. But I didn't want to get hurt pushing too hard on the job since there was no workers' comp, so I ended up learning to play guitar and sing at the top of scaffolding on the set, like 25 feet up with a cool breeze and audio privacy just from the sheer amount of park noise around me. I'd do it again if I had the chance, but I'm not really good enough anymore and I have to be a grown-up. It was probably the best 4 months of my life in some ways. I think the only behind-the-scenes thing that I think everyone would be interested in is just, like, I was allowed to walk everywhere in the park. I had an ID badge that someone could theoretically check, but my costume for the show was streetwear anyway, and no one ever really checked who I was or asked why I was there at any point of the summer. All summer I just walked around exploring the minutiae of the park with impunity, and 80% of the time I could have been a random park goer and no one checked me. It really is amazing how deep you go into places just by acting confident without anyone asking if you should be there. I worked at Disney World and at Universal. I wish I had dirt to share, but both companies were on the up and treated guests with care and provided workers safe environments in which to do their jobs. What I can share for those interested: managers get paid very little but stay on for love of the job. And people in charge of rides instantly hate anyone who stands up when they're clearly not supposed to. You ruin our days by doing so, idiots. Former park ops at a Florida theme park here, my job was to do custodial work in the bathroom and pathways, like sweep, take out the trash, hose. I had a designated section while occasionally getting assigned theater duty. That $15 meal that you just paid for in the restaurant? Yeah, the employees can get all of that for $2 or $3 depending on the items. Theme park food is way overpriced for guests. If you complain enough, you will get what you want. When the theater hits capacity, I can't let anyone in. You can give me a sob-story about how you traveled all the way from Antarctica for all I care. The second that you mention wanting to talk to a supervisor, I have to get them. 9 times out of 10, my supervisor will let you through the show no problem, just to keep you happy. I, on the other hand, will be slightly annoyed, but that's how things work in theme parks. There are plainclothes security officers walking around the whole entire park. You probably don't even notice. So please, think twice before doing anything stupid like doing the deed on the sky ride. There's quite a few even ignoring the markups, like even if they give a prize every time you played a dumb game, the park would still win. So let's see. Many of the people you would actually hope are mature adults and aren't drunk or on something, well, they're 16-year-old green herb users. They also live a very exciting life that makes annoying sitcoms seem reasonable. Guess who Jenny from X Roller Coaster was doing the deed with behind the fry stand? I assure you I don't care, but you'll tell me anyway. Many of those people are massively overworked, and I don't mean like, oh, he did a few hours overtime and hit 45 hours, I mean a 60 to 80 plus hour week for a month straight. We don't get paid overtime. We can work anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day, and there's a special exception in the US Labor Code that says that theme park employees don't need to be paid overtime if they're a seasonal employee. And it just so happens that theme parks mostly hire seasonal employees. Chew on that for your next visit to a theme park north of the Mason-Dixon line. Beyond that, here's a tip. If it's a seasonal park and they're looking to hire, for the love of God, do not apply at the start of the season. They'll tell you that there are more benefits, but if that's at the start of a season, they're understaffed, which means you work double shifts. An employee in the park collapsed in early May after being on his feet for over 10 hours straight. A guy at a chicken tendies restaurant in the theme park was a farmer hick. He liked to do stupid pranks. Turnover was so high, a manager was 16 years old. Basically, kids run the parks. Anyway, Hick wanted to fry his boot in the deep fryer to see what would happen. Boot was caked in cow crap. He dropped it in. At this time, a customer was whining about not getting his french fries, said, "I didn't pay $47 to come into this park and stand in line all day." This was about 17 years ago now. Anyway, the hick farmer was getting annoyed with trying to tong his boot out of the fryer, then gets annoyed at the customer as well and puts the fries down. Fry basket right over the crap-caked boot. Cooked until golden brown and served up to the customer. That was my first day working at the park and my last day in food services. Forever. To this day, if I'm ever dragged to the park for whatever reason, I always avoid that chicken restaurant. I worked for an amusement park in Ohio for 2 summers, and the worst things I've seen are for the foods department. I personally watched a dozen French fries for one of the food stands fall off a pallet and get semi-crushed by the forklift tire, then get thrown back into the pallet to be served. They also had their entire food warehouse get closed down for a better part of the summer because of a bird infestation. The company salvaged what they could and threw it into refrigerated trailers to be served from. The summers I worked there were great, exhausting, and probably borderline illegal for the open-close shifts they had people working, going from 7 or 8 a.m. to maybe 12 a.m. or later. I wouldn't give up the friends I made there, but it could definitely have been better. Disney cast member here. We hate guests, we hate our job. The end. We're supposed to say, have a magical day, but it pretty much just means F you when dealing with rude people. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.